You're tuning in to the Raised by Rentals program. This podcast will contain strong language and spoilers for decades-old media properties.
Join us.
Welcome, everybody. This is the podcast where we examine pop culture franchises of the VHS era, an era that's now 20 years ago. That's right, kiddos. The format that won the original format wars and launched home cinema entertainment as we know it has been dead for 2 decades. So in honor of the video home system, we are here to improv new stories to imagine how we might improve our favorite movies, TV, games, and trading cards. I'm Squashed Josh.
I'm Mad Mike.
And we are Raised by Rentals. Mike, has a messy sneeze ever caught you so off guard that the snot just goes everywhere?
Oh, of course. I mean, who hasn't?
And have you ever felt like you just wanted to unzip your fucking face?
I do right now. My allergies suck.
And does it sometimes feel like your head is going to explode into a mushroom cloud?
I mean, I'm a dad, aren't I? So yes.
Well, good. Then you must have been a fan of the Garbage Pail Kids when you were a kid.
Hey, look at that.
Oh, man. Yeah, I'm glad you picked up on the pattern because I didn't warn you ahead of time that I was going to become Squashed Josh for this episode. And I was like, I knew that you had a favorite Garbage Pail Kids card in mind with your name in it, right?
Of course. I mean, who doesn't?
Right? Because as children of the 80s, of course, we loved the Garbage Pail Kids. It was an absolute phenomenon. It was a huge fad. They were a hit, and one of those things that I think every kid in the 80s was into, whether you were the type of, dirty, messy, snotty boy who would like that sort of thing, or if you were like, the girly girl who shopped in that pink aisle at KB Toys, I think everybody loved Garbage Pail Kids. And so, of course, we had to eventually do an episode dedicated to it, especially since, the premise of this show is that we improve franchises from the VHS era. But the truth is, we haven't actually done that in a long time.
Very true.
There's a really terrible movie adaptation of the Garbage Pail Kids that came out in 1987. And it's one of the things that came up on a list of ideas way back in the first year of Raised by Rentals when we were trying to think of more of these types of properties, the kind where there was a shitty movie or, such a terrible lost opportunity with a unfaithful adaptation of something awesome like a comic or a cartoon, or in this case a trading card series that we started the podcast to talk about these sorts of things, like how can we improve them with some of our ideas, and this is the perfect candidate for it. And it's strange when we started talking about it, like, yeah, it's finally time to do an improve of the fucking Garbage Pail Kids movie. And it was weird because I was like, oh yeah, it'll be like a classic improve. Like, wait, when was the last time we did one of those? And I started looking back through the list and I'm like, shit, it's been a long time. We do a lot of like what if sequels, and we do a lot of character mashups, and we do a lot of trying to re-envision what a franchise would look like, or a movie adaptation for something that never had a movie, like some of these old 8-bit video games and board games. And I just kept going like further and further and further back on the list until I got all the way back to season 1. Right near the end of season 1, we did an episode for the sequel to Teen Wolf 2, that we tried to reimagine, because Teen Wolf 2 with Jason Bateman, like, that movie's fucking terrible. So
yeah, it's real bad.
So we were like, yeah, but Teen Wolf is great. Like, it'd be so sweet to have an awesome Teen Wolf sequel. We'll do Teen Wolf also, and figure out how we can, improve that sequel. And I was like, holy shit, is that really the last time that we did an actual improve of a bad movie? Like 4 seasons ago? So,
Yeah, it's definitely been a while,
yeah.
but it's still on the list. Do this improve idea.
Yeah, so that's why when you posed that we finally get around to doing the Garbage Pail Kids movie, that we come up with something better, I jumped at the chance to put it here early in season 5, and here we are, the third episode of season 5. And this is actually the first improv episode of the season because the first two, we did that clip show that was just sort of like talking about a bunch of ideas, and then we did our Super Gushers episode with the storytelling tips with Unk and Hefe. And so here we are, the third episode of season 5. We're finally going to do like a quote unquote regular episode. Yeah, we told everyone that season 5 was going to be weird. So hey, here we are.
This is true. This is very true.
But anyway, Mike, tell me about Garbage Pail Kids, or tell me about your experience with them. Do you remember like the first time you saw one, or what do you remember about them when you were a kid? Like, did you have a collection, or tell me something about your experience with the Garbage Pail Kids in the 80s.
I'm kind of the odd man out here because I wasn't crazy about gross out play as a kid. Like a lot of the gross out toys and gross out collectibles didn't really do it for me. The horror stuff, yes. The gross out stuff, not so much. When it came to like barf and snot and farts and poop, and I was like, not my cup of tea. Now I did collect a lot of trading cards. Like I was very big in the early 90s and all the Marvel trading cards and all that. But prior to that, I remember collecting the Dinosaur Attack cards, also from Topps.
Nice.
Those I fucking loved. And I forget the name of it, but there were sticker books that were horror movie sticker books.
Yep.
And I had like a Nightmare on Elm Street one and a Fright Night one, and there were like they were scenes from the films that you could then pull the sticker off the card and put it in the sticker book. So I bought a lot of those. Garbage Pail Kids was more that thing that like my friends were into, and I just kind of was like grossed out by them. But then I would see certain ones that I was like, okay, that one's cool. Like I remember I did eventually get a few. Like I bought a few packs, mainly because like there was a few that my buddy had that I thought were really neat. And a lot of the ones that I got that were gross, they just gave to him. I'm like, I don't like this one. But like the one that sticks out to me was Dead Ted, also known as J Decay, because they all had like the two names.
Yeah.
But he's like the zombie crawling up out of the grave.
I love it.
That I always really liked. And of course, I mean, Atom Bomb, that's kind of the main guy that most people think of when they think of Garbage Pail Kids.
Oh yeah.
But then there was also like TV Stevie. I liked him. There was I don't know what Mad Mike, obviously the one I mentioned. He's the Conan one. I liked a lot of like the more monstery ones. Like I know there was one, I don't remember the name, but it looked like a little lizard man. There was one that was like a mummy, if I'm remembering correctly. Like there were a few like that. I know there was an R2D2 one that looked like he was made out of a trash can. I thought that was cool.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that one. That's way back in the first season. That is. Oh crap! It's Ashcan Andy is the name I remember. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. I remember some of those. Like I remember, certain ones just being kind of like interesting. But then there was stuff like, and we're going to talk about the movie here, but like there were cards like Messy Tessie that I was like, God, that's fucking disgusting. Or like, was it Valerie Vomit? Like, God, like, come on. Like I hated those types of cards. So as a kid, I was really grossed out by them. And this film, not to like jump ahead too much here, but the Garbage Pail Kids movie, I don't remember exactly how old I was when I first saw it. I know I didn't see it when it first came out. I did see it once it was playing on cable. So it was probably, if the movie came out in 87, I'm going to guess it was probably closer to like 89. I just remember it was summertime, and I was watching fucking HBO or Showtime, one of the two, and it was in the evening. And the reason that this is important is because I was watching it by myself. I want to say it was a Saturday night. My parents were probably getting ready to go bowling. So I'm watching television. No one else is around. My sister's probably locked up in her room. My brother is probably out with his friends. I just know that I was watching it by myself. And when I fucking saw those Garbage Pail Kids, they scared the shit out of me. They reminded me of, I don't know if you remember the movie House.
Oh yeah.
Those little bastards that come out of the chimney to steal the kid. That's what the Garbage Pail Kids kind of reminded me of. They had that same type of movement and like bobble-headedness to them.
Yeah.
And it creeped me the fuck out. I was so spooked by them that I did not want to finish watching the movie, and I didn't. I was like, I'm done. And I remember going back and watching the movie. It was only a couple years later because it was after we moved on to 3rd Avenue, so that the house that we moved to when I was 11. I remember watching the full movie on TV then and still being a little creeped out by him, but being like, what the fuck am I watching? Because the movie gets so bizarre. Like, I mean, I know we're going to talk about it, but my God, the movie is fucking weird. It's like, how did this get made? How much cocaine was involved to make this movie?
Exactly. Yeah. Like, exactly. Like, we'll get back to the movie in a second, but yeah, I totally agree. The movie is so bizarre. There's also a really great documentary that I'll recommend anybody watch if you're even casually a fan of Garbage Pail Kids or sort of anything surrounding this line, because there's actually a lot of other pop culture stuff like trading card sets and toys and things that kind of tie into Garbage Pail Kids in one way or another. But you should definitely watch this documentary. It's just called 30 Years of Garbage, and I watched it recently. I thought it was great, and I can't remember exactly who said it. I want to say it might have been Mark Newgarden, who's one of the co-creators of the Garbage Pail Kids concept, but he said that the movie was a bad idea, badly executed. And then Mackenzie Astin, who plays the main character in the movie, Dodger, he said that the movie is one of the worst movies ever made. And as a recovering alcoholic, every time somebody brings up the movie to him, he feels like it's somebody who's literally offering him a drink, like just to bring it up.
I did read that his dad really tried to get him out of the movie because of how bad the script was.
Yeah, I read something about that too. And if you don't know, his dad is John Astin, who is fucking Gomez from the Addams Family. Yeah, the old black and white TV show. So which means that Mackenzie Astin is also half brothers with Sean Astin, right, from the Goonies and the Lord of the Rings and shit. And it's funny because Mackenzie Astin in the documentary says that at the time he didn't realize how bad the movie was, and like his dad was trying to get him out of it, but as a kid he was like 13 or whatever. He was like, I thought I was making the Goonies, and expecting it to be this big hit because everyone loves the Garbage Pail Kids, and it just became this like albatross around his neck for years.
Yep.
The poor kid, he had been like a TV star on The Facts of Life, and he thought, oh, this is my big break into Hollywood movies, and like, no.
Nope. Didn't happen.
But yeah, so let's just back up just for a second. I don't want to spend a ton of time on it, but just facts and figures like we do. I think probably anybody who's even slightly into pop culture understands what Garbage Pail Kids are, because not only do they go back to the 80s, and so you have the kids of the 80s like us, the young Generation X and the older millennials who remember having them when they were new, but then they've been relaunched, like, depending on how you look at it, at least 4 times as recently as 2015. So I feel like everybody has probably seen them, heard them, and even if you never owned any of the trading cards, you have definitely seen them. You've at least heard of them. I think people understand what the Garbage Pail Kids are.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? Yeah. But if you want some detail, again, you can go watch the documentary that I mentioned, 30 Years of Garbage. It'll give you the whole story. And as I was watching it, I knew some of the story, and it was cool to get the gaps filled in. And it's strange because I didn't know the history of the Garbage Pail Kids in real life as a kid. when I was a kid, I just thought that they were fun, and I never really collected them. I never had a huge collection, but I would buy a pack if I rode my bike, down to the corner store when I was, 7 or 8 years old, and always was amused by the puns, the punny names and the wordplay.
Right.
And as a kid named Josh is a really common name, especially kids of our generation, but it doesn't rhyme with a lot of words or I guess really work with a lot of puns. So I remember being really disappointed that the only Josh card that I ever saw was Sloshed Josh, which is not that exciting of a card. It's like it looks like there's a baby stuck in a Coke bottle, which is horrific in its own right, but it's not that exciting,
Right.
And I don't know. Actually, I was an adult before I realized that there was another card, Squashed Josh, which I like much better. Which is, it looks like the kid is like a living stress ball being squeezed with his eyeballs popping out.
Nice.
So as a kid, actually, my favorite card was Alien Ian, which looks like a Mars Attacks character, except with this, Cabbage Patch doll looking face that we're used to seeing. And my middle name is Ian. So for me, it was like, okay, the Josh character sucks. So, Alien Ian will be like my card. And so every time I bought a pack, if I got an Alien Ian, I would keep that one. So I had a whole stack of those. But the other ones, I was putting the stickers on my books, and I was, did you ever like put playing cards like in the spokes of your bike, in the tire
Oh, yeah.
spokes? Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
I always use my Garbage Pail Kids for that. It always seemed like much cooler than just like boring playing cards. But yeah, so I knew of them as a kid. I didn't see the movie when it first came out. I didn't see the movie until must have been the mid 90s. It was one of those things where I knew it existed. It looked bad. I wasn't as much of a fan that I like begged my mom to take me to see it when I was younger, so it just kind of passed me by. I was probably 14 or 15 when it was just randomly on Showtime in the middle of a Sunday afternoon, and I sat through it the whole time just like, what the fuck? Yeah.
I feel like this is we've talked about this not only on this show but on the Boogeyman's Closet a lot. There are those types of movies where it's train wreck movie. You watch it for the spectacle of how can it get any worse,
Right?
like, and you're glued to it because you need to know, like, not only how, like, can it get worse, but how the fuck can they wrap this monstrosity up,
Right? Where are they going?
like, yeah, there's no good reason to watch it. It's just like it's morbid curiosity, and I feel like this is that film. Like this is that film that like the film to do that with.
Yeah.
Like, how the fuck is this going anywhere?
Right? Yeah, because it doesn't. Oh God, the movie doesn't go anywhere anyway. So, first of all, like, but hang on, like, let me put a pin in that. We'll come right back to it. But like I was saying, I knew a little bit of the history of the cards in real life. Just being a big comic book fan, there's a lot of comic connections to Garbage Pail Kids because of the people that were involved. I mean, it makes sense when you have a line of trading cards that are fully painted and they have this pop culture influence to a lot of them. It would make sense that there would be a connection to comic books, and there absolutely is, especially to underground indie comics. And so I'm a huge fan of Art Spiegelman, the writer, artist, creator of Mouse, the only comic book ever to win the Pulitzer Prize, about his own grandfather's experience in World War II and the concentration camps and the Holocaust. It's a really dark book, but Art Spiegelman has done a lot of other great things, and he's one of those. I think he might be a Mount Rushmore type in underground comics, right? You think of guys like Robert Crumb and Will Eisner. I think Art Spiegelman might be up there because he and his wife Francoise Mouly were the creators of Raw magazine that came out in the 80s and 90s, which, while technically a magazine, was actually a comic book anthology. And pretty much all of the the big guys of underground comics, from Howard Cruz to Daniel Clowes, so you name it. These guys all like made their bones in Raw magazine, and Art Spiegelman has done a lot of other things. He's a pillar of the independent comic movement, and he was the creator of Wacky Packages back in the 60s, and
Mm-hmm.
also he designed a bunch of other trading card lines and candy and things that the Topps company put out for years. He had been at Topps for close to 20 years before he pitched Garbage Pail Kids along with Mark Newgarden, and it was actually a spin-off of Wacky Packages. There was, one Wacky Package card called Garbage Pail Kid that was a takeoff of Cabbage Patch Kids. All of the
Mm-hmm.
Wacky Packages were just that. They were parodies or satirical reimaginings of like box art and commercial packaging like Pepsi cans and cereal boxes. One of them was about these dolls that were big in the 80s, but the Cabbage Patch dolls were such a big hit that they spun this one card idea off into this other series. But Art Spiegelman himself never really drew any of the cards. They were primarily painted by John Pound and Tom Bunk, who haven't done a lot of comic book work. I didn't really know them before I did my research, but when you think of the look of the Garbage Pail Kids, they're sort of painted and airbrushed, like cherub baby doll characters
Mm-hmm.
being, like mutilated and mutated. That's all from the paintbrush of John Pound and Tom Bunk. But it was the ideas for the characters that Art Spiegelman, Mark Newgarden, and a couple of other people that comic fans might have heard of, like Jay Lynch, R.I.P. Jay Lynch, who passed away a few years ago. He was a big underground cartoonist with Bijou Funnies, which I would put up with there with books like American Splendor and Zap. And he also worked for Mad Magazine for a long time. But most people probably don't realize that a lot of people in America have read Jay Lynch comics without knowing it, because he was the primary writer of the Bazooka Joe bubblegum comic strips for
Oh God.
25 years.
Mhm.
But anyway, yeah. So a bunch of artists that I heard of, including Andy Warhol's nephew, also is one of the artists from the
Oh
Garbage Pail
shit.
Kids. Yeah, who he said he was inspired by his uncle to become a painter, which is kind of interesting. But anyway, so I always thought it was kind of cool that it was this sort of counterculture, like fringe thing, making fun of like popular trends and commercial products of the 80s, that of course they got sued over it from the creators of the Cabbage Patch Kids. And
Of course.
yeah, or should I say they got sued by the company that owned the Cabbage Patch Kids, who themselves had been sued by the actual creator of the Cabbage Patch Kids that they stole it from, Martha
Yes.
Nelson Thomas. But anyway, so it was a huge fad in the 80s, and they went through like 15 or 16 different series of the cards. It put the Topps company on on the map after decades of being around doing these like silly little cards and candies and toys. And suddenly they became a big deal in the trading card market, to the point where after the 2000s, in the 21st century, they became the official trading card company of MLB, of Major League Baseball. So
Yep.
they were rocketed to fame. I also am still a big fan of Mars Attacks. I didn't even
Oh
know
yeah.
I didn't even know that it was a trading card series. I just liked the comic books that came out in the 90s and the fucking amazing movie.
Mm.
God damn, I love that movie. And like, what an example of how you can take something silly like a trading card set and make an amazing movie out of it. And it just makes the Garbage Pail Kids movies seem all the worse,
Right. I'm
But
still waiting for my dinosaur attacks movie. Damn it.
right. Well, Art Spiegelman, it was also the creator of Mars Attacks, and if you weren't aware, also a co-creator on Dinosaurs Attack with this guy called, what was his name? Gary Girani, who apparently has designed more trading card series and created more of these types of parody characters than anybody alive. He was like the big top guy at Topps for for this whole period.
I never knew that. Well, first of all, I knew about Art Spiegelman and Garbage Pail Kids because of you. I remember this was mentioned years ago. You and I had talked about this. At least I'm pretty sure it was you, because I don't know who else would have told me that. But
it's one of my favorite little pieces of trivia. Like, did you know that the first guy who ever won the Pulitzer Prize for comics also made wacky packages?
Right. I was gonna say, I completely had forgotten about that until we were doing this, and I was looking up information on the Garbage Pail Kids. I was like, no shit, I forgot about that. I did not know, however, that he was involved with Mars Attacks and Dinosaur Attacks. Yep. That's, well, fuck.
That dude's awesome.
Learned something new.
Right.
Yeah.
He still makes comics to this day. And I mentioned, Francoise Mouly, his wife. She's been a publisher for a really long time, and so she actually works for. Is it Scholastic? I think Scholastic that owns Toon Books, but she runs a publishing imprint called Toon that makes books for kids, and they're all specifically in like a comic book format. They're not necessarily comics for kids. They're like children's books, like board books and stuff, but they use like sequential art and like panels, which I think is just a really cool like hybrid of like a classic board book and like a comic strip. And she gets famous comic book artists, like including Jay Lynch, who, the Bazooka Joe guy, to do books for her. So, people that you've heard of, like, Craig Thompson, the creator of Goodbye Chunky Rice and Blankets, guys like that, like kind of that caliber. They've all done Toon books for Francoise Mouly. I think she's one of those people where, like, when she calls you, you fucking answer.
Right.
But anyway, I don't think we had anybody of that caliber working on the fucking Garbage Pail Kids movie.
No, we sure did not. I don't even think we had a real script right on this movie. I did see that the prosthetic heads involved with the Garbage Pail Kids, like, there was a lot of problems with it, and apparently the director was just like, oh, it'll look better after we film. It's like, no, there were problems with it, dude. Like, you have to fix it. But no, it was just, it'll be worked out in post. That clearly didn't happen.
Yeah, this was, and I read that this was literally just like a contract fulfiller. Like, this guy, yes. Rod Amato, he had made a bunch of like shitty movies with whatever movie studio it was. I don't even fucking care. But he basically had a contract to make like 7 movies, and he was like, I got to shit out one more. And he just made this and clearly didn't give a fuck.
No, and it shows drastically that I'm pretty sure that the only one involved that actually gave any sort of a fuck was probably frickin' Mackenzie Aston, because I think everybody else was like, oh, fuck me, why am I in this movie?
Right? Yeah, exactly. I didn't read all the trivia on IMDb, because this isn't the Boogeyman's Closet, but like, one of the pieces of trivia, I think it might be the first one, literally says that the movie studio for a time had considered John Carl Buechler to direct the film.
Yes.
And I'm like, you motherfucker, I wish I hadn't read that. Like, I'm mad about it now.
I know.
Right? Because
me too. I was like, motherfucker.
Because he made fucking Friday the 13th Part 7. He made The Reanimator. He made fucking Hatchet. Or he didn't make Reanimator. He did makeup for it. But he worked on Hatchet.
He was in Hatchet.
Yeah. He worked on all kinds of stuff. When I say made, I don't mean he directed, but like, he's worked on so many great, horror movies over the year. Like, he's a big name in the horror community. Oh. And I'm like, God damn it, he should have fucking made this movie.
Yeah, no, he is definitely a favorite. I mean, as far as like directing gigs and stuff goes, like, yes, he did, direct Friday the 13th, 7, New Blood, one of the best ones. But then there's also a lot of movies like Troll, and fucking Cellar Dweller, and like, but he's also done a fuck ton of special effects. I mean, a metric ton of special effects. The guy was awesome. Gone too soon. But yeah, when I read that he not only did he want to make it, but he wanted to make a horror film out of it.
Yeah.
And the idea was that they would be spawned from radioactive sludge that found their way into a garbage can with broken dolls and turned them into serial killing monsters.
Dude, that would have been fucking amazing.
I would have much rather seen that movie.
Right? I mean, I've already gone on record as, saying that the movie Dolls, the horror movie from the 80s, is like one
Oh
of those
yeah.
movies that scared the shit out of me when I was a kid just because of the creepy fucking dolls in it. And if it had been the Garbage Pail Kids, like, man, that would have been the type of movie that scared the piss out of me, but I would have kept begging my parents to rent it anyway. you know?
Yep. Same.
Oh,
Like
God.
I think that would have pulled me in more so, because like I said, I mean, when I fucking did watch it, it terrified me. Like I was like, what? Like these things are nightmare fuel. They're so gross looking and so creepy looking. Watching it as an adult, I couldn't help but notice and in fact, I posted a picture on Facebook, the amount of times that Alligator, you could just see his flesh under the costume. There were every single time he'd raise his arms, the sleeves would pull back over the gloves, and it's like, hey, there's a white dude under there.
Right?
It was so bad. There was one point with friggin' Windy Winston where he was moving his head back and forth, and the shirt was forward enough where you could see the seam of the mask. Like you could just see the flappy part of the mask like moving back and forth. It's like, this is so badly done. It's so bad.
Yeah, it's terrible. Yeah, in that documentary I mentioned, I forget who said it, but somebody said that the masks look like they were made out of paper mache. Like, yeah.
They kind of do, yeah. I mean, but I will say this, like one good thing I will say about it is Phil Fondacaro. Fucking Phil Fondacaro is great in everything.
Hell yeah.
I gotta give him a pass here because you never see the man's face. He's under Greaser Greg. I love Phil Fondacaro. Every fucking time I see that man on screen, he elevates the movie. I can't say he elevated this movie, but I'm giving him a pass because he's good in everything else.
Hey man, he's just good, period. Like, everybody can have a bad day. Everybody can just, take a paycheck. Like, sometimes it's okay.
Right. And I will say he did what he could with the character.
Right.
There really wasn't much.
No. Yeah, and I don't think that I really know any of the other like little person actors except for Debbie Lee Carrington, who played she was Messy Tessie, and I only really know her. I mean, I've seen her in a bunch of stuff, but as soon as I saw her face in the documentary, I was like, oh, like she's in Total Recall. Yeah, she plays the little person sex worker in Total Recall.
Yep.
But she's in a bunch of stuff, so I was like, yeah, that's cool. Like there's some good actors in this movie, and I'd seen Mackenzie Astin in a few things. I had to look him up on IMDb because I'm like, why does his face look so familiar? And like, I was like, okay, yeah. So he was a TV star. He's been in some movies. He's been on a shitload of TV. He's just one of these guys that everybody has seen him in something, in some episode of like, CSI or whatever. So, he never really made it big like his brother, but he's still around. He's still working. He's got a really long, IMDb filmography. So, hey, good for him that he's still around. The one that I was most surprised about was Katie Barberi, who plays Tangerine in the movie. First of all, fuck her and fuck whoever came up with the name Tangerine for that character.
She was the dream girl, Tangerine Dream.
Oh, girl. But it's awesome because not only is she also a working actor, I mean, she's been around forever. Like, she's in everything from Hollywood stuff, like in the Saw franchise, but also all over TV. But, she's apparently also a native Spanish speaker. She's, Mexican-American, and she was a child star even way back then on like the Spanish language Nickelodeon, and has apparently managed a career for all these years working on Mexican TV and in like American Hollywood and TV, so kind of doing a little bit of both. And like, she's got a shitload of credits, and I'm like, you know what, I never heard of you, but hey, good for you. Like I guess she made it out of the mess alive.
I did find it odd that her and Mackenzie were actually dating in real life when they made this, because she seems much older. I don't know if it's just because of the way they look, if they're much older. I didn't bother to look up their ages, but yeah, when I read that they were actually dating, I was like, I thought it was creepy in the movie that like this 16 or 17-year-old girl was going after this kid who was like 13. I was like, that's kind of weird.
It is weird.
It's like, I don't know how I feel about that.
Well, I just looked it up like while you were saying that. Yeah, so she's 1 year older than him, which isn't that bad. But I think the problem
Oh,
is
okay.
that at the time she had clearly sprouted, right? She was much more of a
Right.
woman, and Mackenzie Aston was still very much a skinny, like twerpy kid. He hadn't hit that like that middle school puberty growth spurt that guys tend to hit
Right.
a little bit later than the girls. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, he was very twerpy. Um, I liked him in Iron Will in the 90s. That's one of those like, stupid movies from the 90s. That's like a kind of a, a Disney, saccharine sweet movie, but I always really liked it. Anyway, let's get into the movie. What would we do to, improve this fucking movie? And I guess the answer is do anything. Anything is better. But specifically, like, what should we do? I do like the name of the main character. I like the character named Dodger. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, and it was, I guess it was a play on the whole Artful Dodger. Like that was the reason that they named him that. Which okay, it kind of makes sense with the fact that he seems like an orphan boy in this movie.
I know, right?
It's like there's really no parental figures. It's just you work at this antique shop. This guy takes care of you. Like, where is his family? What's going on?
Right, and he's like out and about at like all times of the night and day, like going to clubs and hanging out with people. And it's like, do you? He just goes to work. Like, do you ever go to school? I mean, I guess maybe it could be summer vacation, but yeah, it's strange.
It's weird.
So real quick, before we get like, too far into the plot or whatever, I just want to mention one more quick little interesting piece of trivia, at least to me, is the character who owns the antique store where Dodger works. His name is Captain Manzini. He's played by an actor. I never heard of him before. His name is Anthony Newley, but I only mention it because it's kind of ironic that he plays the Artful Dodger in the 1948 adaptation of Oliver Twist.
Oh, that's fucking awesome. I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah, it's just kind of like a weird little piece of like synchronicity that like Dodger is being mentored by like the Artful Dodgers. That's kind of cool.
Right. Okay, I actually like that, but
yeah.
But no, like, I mean, let's just we'll just voice some grievances about this film. Like first and foremost, we open up with the garbage can in space. Okay, so
right.
it's floating in space. It has jet engines on the bottom of the garbage can. And then suddenly we see an antique shop where it's, I don't know, is it like fucking the got my mind set on you video where everything's fucking looking around. Like, why is everything in the antique shop alive? Like,
right?
Like, is this the fucking George Harrison music video here? It's confusing. Like, the eyeballs are looking around in the paintings, and there's just a garbage can in the middle of the store. And like when the Garbage Pail Kids come out, it's just like, oh, okay, yeah, this is just a thing. Like, we know about it. It's just, the guy who runs the shop knows that they're there. Why? How did they get there? Were they from space? Are they an old antique? What is it? Like, none of this makes any fucking sense.
Right? That fucking opening with the trash can in space reminds me of the first scene of Predator, right? That also came out the same year, where you have this entire amazing movie about this military crew versus this alien who's clearly on safari on Earth, but from what I understand, somebody, the producer at the movie studio or somebody, made them put this stupid little insert at the very, very beginning where you see a spaceship, in space fly toward Earth, because they didn't think that the audience would understand that, oh, it's an alien monster. Like, you couldn't put two and two fucking together when you see him take the mask off and he's got like a four mandible jaw, like, what the fuck?
And he has like laser weapons and shit.
I know. And I fucking hate that scene because I think it takes away the mystery element of the movie where it should be a mystery. Like, what the fuck are we fighting against? Like, what is this thing in the woods? Is this some kind of super soldier? Is it something from the future? Like, when you find out it's an alien, it should be a big reveal as opposed to,
Right.
oh no, we saw a spaceship like an hour ago. You know, it's like, why did you do that? You know?
Exactly. But in this section, it makes absolutely no sense because when they're talking about putting the kids back in the garbage pail, they're talking about magic. So it's like, are they magic? Are they aliens? What are they?
Right? And how come the trash can doesn't have like fucking jet engines on it? If they lived in a trash can with jet engines on it, they wouldn't be worried about people showing up from, get this, the state home for the ugly.
Oh God. Okay. We gotta. The stayed home for the ugly. So real quick, because I had to make the note here. The different cages. We have too bald, too weird, too skinny, too fat, too old, too gross, too short, too pale, too hairy, too silly, and too crippled. Like what the?
And they catch him and lock him up like it's a fucking dog catcher taking animals to the pound.
They literally do. They use a fucking oversized net. They catch that little girl who just happens to be playing hide and seek with a monster mask on for some reason.
Right.
Which, I mean, to be fair, who amongst us as a kid didn't play dress up with a weird mask that we got for Halloween?
Of course.
But I thought it was funny that the mask the girl was wearing looked a lot like the quote unquote beautiful people in that episode of The Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
Where the lady she looked normal and she had to get she was trying to get facial reconstruction surgery. And then we see all the doctors, they have like the weird, like, pug nose and like the flappy face.
Yeah,
it's
that's
like,
cool.
She looked like that. But I was like, oh, that's kind of a cool little nod. But I'm trying to glean any good things from this film. The other thing, there is a scene where Greaser Greg and Messy Tessie were in a trunk, and Greaser Greg was diddling her because she comes out, she goes, enough of that. He's like, hey, the examination isn't over, and he's got like a doctor stethoscope, and she's pulling her dress down, saying, yes, it is. Like, this is a kids movie, and two of the Garbage Pail Kids were just diddling each other in the trunk.
Yep.
Like, they seem less like kids and more like drunken little people.
Right? But I mean, to be fair, have you seen any of the other kids movies from the 80s, Mike? Like, they're all full of weird,
that is true,
sexy shit and like existential horror.
This is true. I'm forgetting my time period.
Right? It's like you know, I no good examples are coming to my mind right now as I mention it, but you know, it was like they used to put adult humor into kids movies so that like the parents who got dragged along could have like a second to snicker. But there's a lot of like weird sex jokes and stuff in like old 80s movies.
There really are. But like, and see, this is another perfect example of like, who was the target audience? Because I mean, clearly it's supposed to be a kids movie, but like, there's a lot of weird shit in this film. Like the fact that alligator is trying to constantly, he's constantly threatening to eat people's toes. Like he's going after people's toes all the time. And he has just a box of random human body parts that no one seems to be bothered by. Like he's just eating fingers and toes and bloody eyeballs throughout the film,
right,
and threatening to eat people, and everyone's like, oh, you. And it's like, no, here is an alligator man who is keeping a box of parts, and he's not kidding. He's eating them. Why is no one bothered by this?
Well, exactly. And even later on when he ends up at like the biker bar and he bites the actual dude's foot and like to eat his toes, and then the other bikers are like, whoa, like these guys are pretty cool, and then they become friends. I was like, the dude just fucking ate the guy's toes. What are you talking about? Like, he bit a chunk of that guy off, you know? Like
And it was the toughest bar in the world.
Yeah.
That was clearly like a slapdash paint job on that sign.
Right. I was going to mention that too because you see a lot of these weird signs. Like, there's the stay home for the ugly. That's weird. You mentioned the bar, but also earlier they go to like take some sewing machines and stuff, and the sign says non-union sweatshop.
And again, all of these signs look like they handed $5 and a piece of poster board to someone in the art department, and they were like, "Get this done in 5 minutes."
Right?
Because it's just the most slapdash like painting, and like there's drippies on the like. I mean, it looks like it wasn't even fully dry when they hung it up. Like, it's terrible.
It is awful. And speaking of, going to steal some sewing machines, why the fuck is this movie about the Garbage Pail Kids becoming like sweatshop labor to make clothes for a fashion designer? What the fuck does that have to do with the Garbage Pail Kids?
They literally took the bones of the elves and the shoemaker. They took the bones of that story and went, yeah, that works for this. Like, wait, what? Like, you have these weird little creatures that can make the clothing items that you need. Like, it's literally the elves and the shoemaker, which is, who would have, like, why was that ever on the docket for Garbage Pail Kids?
Like, at what point did someone think that Garbage Pail Kids should just make clothes? Like, where does that come from? Like, I don't understand the connection at all. Like, you might as well told me that they were like making nuclear weapons or like, doing calculus for NASA. Like, there's no connection. It doesn't make any sense.
It would have made more sense if they were making chemical weapons and just like barfing into them or gassing them up with Winston's ass,
Right, exactly. It really feels like it was just some spec script that was laying around about, some teenage wannabe fashion designer who takes advantage of her, like illegal immigrant Mexican neighbor or something, and they're like, yeah, I'll just replace the immigrant with the Garbage Pail Kids. It'll be perfect.
and was it just me, or was there a point where Messy Tessie was gluing rhinestones onto a jean jacket with boogers?
No, there was not a point. That happened 3 times. I made notes.
Okay, I was like half paying attention while I was watching this because I kept rolling my eyes so far back in my head.
It was her only job. While the other characters were sewing, she was gluing on rhinestones with snot to all the clothes.
That's so fucking gross.
The movie it doesn't make any fucking sense. The plot has nothing to do with the Garbage Pail Kids. The choice of characters that they picked to be in the movie doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, those are not the most popular characters or even the easiest ones to make makeup or masks for. Like, it's just, everything is strange about this movie. And it doesn't. One thing that isn't strange is that you have a main character. It's an 80s kids movie, so you have a main character who is being constantly bullied and running away from bullies, where his entire life becomes like, I just need to learn how to stand up to these bullies. That's the never-ending story. And like every other fucking movie from the 80s, The Goonies, everything, you name it. Like, bullies were a national menace to kids everywhere in the 80s.
They really were.
But like, this one is especially weird because Juice, the leader of the I say bullies, but they're more like a fucking mob. Like, they're like a straight up like illegal gang. At one point, Juice is on the phone talking to somebody about like when the shipment gets here, like call customs or something. Like, what are you importing drugs? Like, what are you talking about?
And let's look at the character. So it was Juice, and his henchmen were Wally and Blythe.
Right?
And then his girlfriend was Tangerine. Who named these people?
I know, it's so... And, like, the entire opening sequence is, I guess their names are Willie and Blythe. I didn't take my notes that well to even know their names. But, like, these people, these grown-ass adults are chasing a kid who's probably 13, like, through the park. and they're spending all this time like running him down, and then they drag him over to see the ringleader Juice, who like literally shakes the kid up for what, like $6 out of his back pocket.
Right.
Like,
Yes.
and the dude Juice is like, I don't know how old the character's supposed to be, but the actor was 22. So this fucking 22-year-old is like shaking down a preteen for $6. Like, what the fuck?
And then they throw him in the sewer.
Right?
It's like,
Oh,
and I love how easily they just pry the sewer lid up from the street.
yeah, they literally try to kill this kid, and you get the impression that maybe Tangerine isn't as bad as the rest of them, and like she kind of makes friends with Dodger a little bit, and then you see her selling her clothes, like her fashion designs, and she talks about how she's gonna like buy her way out of this town, and then every time Juice shows up, she just hands over a fucking cash box full of money that she got selling her clothes, but at no point does she demonstrate reluctance. Like, she doesn't want to hand over her money like he's some kind of pimp who's coming around, sticking his hand in her pocket. She just hands it over and then later betrays Dodger to him. Like, well, of course, Juice should take all of my money and my body and everything else. Like, it doesn't make any
Right.
sense. Like, what's up with this fucking Juice guy? Like, what makes him so special?
And the only point when Tangerine even seems like she feels bad is when Dodger goes, "I don't think you're pretty anymore," and he walks away. Then she's like, "Oh, sad face." It's like, what? You're a fucking monster throughout this entire movie.
Right? Exactly. And the only time you have like a twinge of humanity is when somebody thinks that you're maybe not as pretty as you think you are, but that's the tragedy in life for you. Like, Jesus, like, what a shallow bitch.
Also, there's a weird moment of comedy where when they throw him down in the sewer, throw Dodger in the sewer, we see all of these different pipes, and there's little arrows on each of the pipes. One says men's room,
Yep.
one says hot tub, there's CIA, city zoo, primetime TV, toxic waste, and dog pound.
Yep.
And now that could have just been like a weird little throwaway joke or whatever joke. But then there's a scene later where Juice is sitting on a public toilet and the Garbage Pail Kids go down there and crank the valve for the primetime TV area. And suddenly we see Juice get shot up on a sprig of water from the toilet. Keep in mind, he was sitting down to take a shit, and his pants are all the way on.
Right?
Like they're fully pulled up, and he gets like shot up in the air on this like hose of water from the toilet.
Right?
It's
Which,
like, wait, what the fuck is happening?
right? And like, Mackenzie Aston said he was like, I thought I was making the Goonies. And like this exact scene happens in the Goonies with Troy when he gets like, shot off the toilet. And it's like, it worked so much better in the Goonies.
Well, because in the Goonies it was like, all right, dude, we see his pants around his ankles, so clearly he's taking a shit.
Right?
And then when he gets sprung off, he just gets thrown forward and gets covered in toilet water. In this, he gets lifted up by his fucking balls and asshole.
Right? By
Wow.
a jet of water.
And he's held against the ceiling with it while he's fully wearing his pants, even though he was shitting.
Right?
Like,
Well,
the fuck?
the continuity doesn't make any sense either because, there's also, that weird montage when the Garbage Pail Kids are like looking for Pepsi and chips and shit. And they literally steamroll Juice's car somehow with their normal sized van, but they completely crush his car. But it happens in between two scenes where we see Juice wearing different clothes in a different place. So like it's like a weird like out of continuity shot where they decided to crush Juice's car, but like then you just see him again like nothing happened in a different outfit like a minute later. Like,
Right.
They cut the movie weird.
It's so bad, man. Like, I know we're probably gonna I know we're bitching a lot about this movie, but it's like, my God, it's I can't stress how fucking awful this film is. And I know there are people out there that like it. I get it. I love a lot of bad movies myself. So I understand that there are going to be fans of this, but like, this was an exercise in patience for me. Like, watching this movie, I was just frustrated through more than half of it.
Yeah.
Like, there was not many redeeming qualities at all.
Correct. Yeah. In fact, I watched the movie at 1.7 speed because doing it at like double speed made the dialogue just a little bit too hard to understand, but I needed to get through it as quickly as I could.
I do not blame you, because the other thing we should probably mention here is the copy that we watched. Won't say how, but the audio was way off from the visuals. So not only am I watching this film where the people are talking and then I'm hearing the audio, but I had to sit here and painfully watch this movie for an hour and 37 minutes. And I was just like, I hate everything about this. I like, not even like to make it worse than it already is, the audio is all fucked. So it's like, and I was not gonna fucking pay for this movie. So I'm just gonna say that right now.
No. It's like, we don't pay for bad movies, matey.
Yeah, this is one I was like, it ain't happening. I don't care.
we have other means.
And normally I am a big proponent of properly renting, properly but this one, no, just no,
absolutely not. But I actually watched the documentary first just because I really wanted to enjoy the Garbage Pail Kids and like enjoy revisiting the memories. So I watched the documentary and then I was all jazzed about it. So going into the movie, I at least was able to kind of pick out like, oh, okay, there's some cool little trivia, like they picked this character and that little detail. There wasn't much, but it was like, okay, just better than like absolutely nothing, no redeeming quality whatsoever. I at least could make a connection or two by having some of the trivia fresh in my head. But yeah, I had to speed it up just to get through it. It was tough.
It's so awful. Like the only good thing I can say about the movie is the original poster design. Now, not the one that's on the DVD covers where it's just like the glowing green trash can with the little hands coming out, but the original poster design where it's like the painting of Dodger kind of falling over in the street and the garbage can like opening with all their faces peeking out.
That's cool.
That's a great image, and I think it's a great image because it's really fucking unsettling. Like the look on all the Garbage Pail Kids' faces, especially fucking Messy Tessie, is eerie. It's really fucking spooky looking. So I'm like, all right, you know what? I'll give him that. Whoever the artist was that did that was a really cool painting.
It was, yeah. And it tells a story like right in that painting. You see the kid, who's like cowering in fear and the characters are coming out of the cans. I think that's really, really cool. It was
right.
And again, I can't remember who the artist was. It was one of the artists who came on for the relaunch of the Garbage Pail Kids, the all new series in the 2000s. And one of the artists said that when he was learning from the older artists and he was painting from drawings that Jay Lynch had done, that he said he had to learn storytelling. Like he took classes and he went back to things he had learned in art school, because it wasn't just, well, let me render an interesting picture, but you have to figure out how to tell a story with just one image. And
Yes.
I think when you think about that and you look at some of the Garbage Pail Kids, like that's exactly what you see. And that's what I think what makes that movie poster so interesting, because it's not just a still image like, ooh, a glowing garbage can, but like, no, it's like telling a story with characters.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and that is something that was very much a Topps trading card thing, because I know the thing that drew me into Dinosaur Attacks so much as a kid was I would kind of like put together a story in my head about like what happened, what created this situation here, and like what happens afterward. Like I remember one of my favorite cards was there was like a cruise liner that was being attacked by a Godzilla style monster, and like it was destroying the cruise liner, and you saw all these people like jumping off the cruise ship into the water, and like there were great white sharks attacking the people in the water. And I remember just thinking about like what a horrific scenario that was.
Right.
And I would stare at that card for just like so long, thinking up like, well, how would you escape? How would you get away? Like it was a cool story, you know. And that is something you see a lot in like Mars Attacks and Dinosaur Attacks and all that. And to a lesser extent, yeah, Garbage Pail Kids, like you definitely kind of get an idea of who these characters are just by the one image. So yeah, like I'm looking at some of them right now, and it's like there is a little bit of a story to some of them. So it's cool. Like Fry and Ryan, the Godzilla one.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up too, because I didn't think to look up the artist for the poster. Watching the documentary, a lot of the artists from the original cards are in there talking about it, which, it's fascinating in and of itself. Mike, as an artist, you would love to check that out and kind of understand not only how they created the artwork, but, their thought process. And I was shocked that the artwork is so small. The original couple of series of the cards from the 80s are only double the size of the final trading card. The original painting is only 2 up, which means that they're like,
oh wow,
5x7 or something, like pretty small.
Right. Which, I mean, I feel like that makes sense for the simplistic nature of some of these. Like, there's a lot of detail, but they're very simplistic character designs. So, like, that makes sense to me.
Yeah. But I had to Google it just now because you mentioned it. And yeah, as it turns out, he passed away just a few months ago from this recording. But Drew Struzan, I think that's how you pronounce that. He was the artist on that poster who has done an absolute shitload of Hollywood movie posters. But some that I know you would instantly recognize are Blade Runner, Back to the Future, all 3 of the Indiana Jones movies, all the Harry Potter movies, The Shawshank Redemption,
Big Trouble in Little China.
Yeah, a shitload. Yeah. So that's awesome.
As soon as you said his name, I was like, oh, it's the dude that did the Big Trouble in Little China poster and the Thing poster.
Yeah. He's done so many. Batteries Not Included, and of course the Goonies. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They definitely got a high caliber artist. He was probably the only person who worked in this movie that he was like the top of his game. The only A-lister involved was the guy who painted the poster.
Right. Oh my god. Yeah, no, that's a shame. It's a shame.
Oh, and one more I have to mention, the absolute classic, one of the greatest movie posters of all time, The Thing, with the shiny face. That was him.
Mm-hmm.
So fucking cool. Anyway, yeah, so let's get into this. Let's figure out, like, fuck the movie that exists. It clearly sucks. I don't know that we really need to keep anything from it. I like the name Dodger. I think we should use that just because it's neat. But let's talk about what should have happened. Like, if we had the Keys to the Kingdom way back in the 80s and we wanted to make a Garbage Pail Kids movie for the kids of that generation who would have flocked to the theaters, with their rubber band stack of trading cards in their back pocket, like, what would we have made for that crowd?
I say we take the entirety of the film and chuck it out and keep only like certain elements. Like you said, Dodger. I like the idea of having bullies. Like, bullies are always an 80s staple, especially in kids' movies. I mean, if anything, 80s children's properties told us to be afraid of bullies, lava, and quicksand.
Exactly. I thought those were going to be like a much bigger problem in real life.
Right. I mean, so far I've only had to deal with bullies, so thank God, no lava and quicksand. But yeah, I mean, like, I feel like we should keep the idea of bullies. I like the main character being named Dodger. I think he should have some friends, like, instead of just being friends with an old man who runs an antique shop and random space children or whatever the fucking Garbage Pail Kids were.
Right.
Like, get rid of all of that. But here's the thing I think we should focus on. So like we take the original film, they clearly focused on the classic tale of the elves and the shoemaker, as we discussed earlier, which doesn't make any fucking sense for a Garbage Pail Kids movie. But what does make sense for a Garbage Pail Kids movie is something like the idea of Pleasure Island from Pinocchio,
Okay.
Neverland from Peter Pan. The idea of there's this other world where you can do anything. You can do your heart's desire. Like I'm a big fan of like Stranger in a Strange Land type of
Hmm.
stories. Like
Yeah.
that's why, like the type of fantasy I always am drawn to are more so than high fantasy. It's more like the Harry Potter style of fantasy where it's like here's this dude who lives in the real world and then suddenly, hey, look, magic exists and here's this whole other world you knew nothing about. It reminds me of oh god, I think it was Piers Anthony who wrote there's a book called Magical Kingdom for Sale that I remember reading in middle school that I thought was fucking awesome. It was like this dude who sees a newspaper article or in the wanted ads, a magical kingdom for sale, and he inquires about it, and it literally is a magical kingdom. So I've always liked those type of stories of Stranger in a Strange Land, and I think that's the appropriate way to go about this. Think movies like Little Monsters from the 80s where
Oh
it's
yeah.
like, fucking Howie Mandel and Fred Savage. I think that's the type of storyline that they should have played with here. Instead of having the Garbage Pail Kids be the strangers in the strange land, Dodger and his friends should be the strangers in a strange land where they go to the Garbage Pail Kids instead of the other way around. At least that's kind of how I feel like it should go.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense actually. And even though I didn't watch all the episodes, I just watched like a couple of clips. There was a Garbage Pail Kids cartoon, an animated
Oh
series.
fuck, I forgot about
Yeah,
that.
it didn't actually ever air in America, like on broadcast TV. It was supposed to be on CBS, Wikipedia tells me, but I have, a copy of the whole season, and I just never seen it. It's just, I've had it like burned on something forever because it did eventually come out on DVD. I guess it was released in, outside the U.S. and other countries. I don't know. But the only reason I bring it up is because I don't remember if they were human kids who transformed into Garbage Pail Kid looking mutants, or if it was that their natural form was that they were, mutant looking, gross looking kids who transformed into like normal looking humans to disguise themselves. But regardless, there was like this weird transformation. There was this whole gang of kids, and I think that they were humans who basically like became Garbage Pail Kids as like a
Hmm.
superpower, you know? um,
As I've never seen it. I just remember hearing about it, and like I'm looking at it now, and I'm like, yeah, I'd never fucking seen this.
Yeah, I'm not really remembering exactly right, but I was thinking about it when you were talking, and I'm like, yeah, I think that's kind of in line with that same idea of like, let's take some regular kids, and yeah, I love this idea of Pinocchio. That's really cool because when you think of the idea of Pinocchio and Pleasure Island or whatever it's called, especially in the Disney adaptation, they Pinocchio and these kids are I guess they're tricked, they're conned into going to this place where they think everything is going to be great. They can do whatever they want. There's no parents, no bullies, no rules. But, then they start like being
Hmm.
basically transformed into donkeys and being,
Hmm.
forced into like slave labor and like not everything is what it's cracked up to be. And like that's kind of an interesting concept if there was some kind of world or place or something where the like normal kids can go, but in this weird, spooky verse, there's these like crazy mutant kids, and the humans think it's awesome at first because like, oh man, like I can get run over by a car and it doesn't even hurt. Like this is crazy, or whatever.
Right.
And these they just have fun with like, oh, I'm gonna jump off the roof. Like, oh look, I'm gonna stab this knife through my hand. Look, it doesn't even hurt. Like that's nuts. And they kind of have fun with it or something, but very much in keeping with like a Pinocchio story, maybe the human kids start to turn into Garbage Pail Kids. Like it's some kind of a curse or a punishment or something. I don't know. I'm just riffing, but I kind of like that idea.
I feel like that's yeah, no, I feel like that makes the most sense because like we need a threat. Like we need like why wouldn't they just keep coming back to the Garbage Pail Kid universe if you need to blow off some steam, you go to this place and you can literally like take your head off and roll it down the street. Like you can do
Yeah.
whatever the hell you want. Like why wouldn't they just keep coming back if there wasn't, some kind of like downside to it? And I think that's it. I think that it's the whole oh God, do you remember the Twilight Zone movie where there was the old people who they become young again, and
Oh
then the whole idea
yeah.
is like you can stay young and relive your life, or you can return to your old life and you can appreciate the life that you have. And like all of the old folks decided, no, I don't want to be young again, I don't want to go through puberty again, I don't want to do all that again. But there's the one guy who's like, I do, like, tally ho, goodbye, and he like jumps out the window. I feel like that's the route you want to go with this, because I feel like the temptation of staying there would be really strong. So that's almost like, that's the what's not I don't want to say the conflict, but kind of the conflict is like,
Hmm.
do you go back to your normal life, or do you stay here in the fantasy land? And like, it's kind of like what is it, Hook, the
Yeah. Hmm.
Peter Pan story there, where it's like Peter Pan left, he left Neverland, he had a life, and then he goes back. It's like, I feel like that's the kind of idea, that's the kind of vibe I'm picking up from this concept, is where whatever these kids do, they can't stay in Garbage Pail Kid world, otherwise they'll become Garbage Pail Kids permanently. And then they have to make that decision. Do you want to stay there, or do you want to go back to your life with your family and your annoying little brother and all that kind of stuff? Like, what
Yeah.
do you want to do? So I think that's the world we need to play in.
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome. I love that. Yeah, let's stop right there and just kind of like put some building blocks in place and figure out like where we're going. But yeah, I think as a general concept, that's great. It's we make Garbage Pail Kid Land or whatever it is, like something that's like, just like when kids of our age back in the 80s, when you would look at these cards and see what looks like, I always thought they looked like babies. They were
Yeah.
they were being, like stabbed and run over or whatever. And you laugh at it because it's this weird fantasy where it's hilarious because it's just a trading card and it's not actually happening. And like that's kind of a neat idea. They go to this world where, of course, the kids would think it was awesome that they could do all this dangerous stuff and they're fine about it. But like anything, shit should and can like get out of control. So yeah, let's back up and kind of figure out, okay, Dodger, and I like the idea of there being more than one than just this one kid, because yeah, like I think like a gang of kids, it's that like kids on bikes trope of the 80s.
Yep.
Like all of these adventure stories like the Goonies and the Explorers, or even Stand By Me, is kind of like the dark adult version of like 3 or 4 or 5 kids who they go on a journey somewhere together.
Going on an adventure. Yeah, well, and shit, before the episode we were just, chatting about Stranger Things. That's another one. That's a more modern example of like, hey, get a bunch of kids together. They're, going on an adventure and some weird shit's going to happen. It's a tried and true trope. So I feel like this is the route to go. So like we have Dodger, he'll be our main guy. Now do we want to have do we want to have him have siblings, or just like be his buds from school and around the neighborhood, like, just a couple extra kids? How do we want to go about this?
Yeah, I think so. I think since we're talking about these 80s tropes, like the kids on bikes and the little monsters of Pinocchio kind of deal, let's lean into that. And let's, just like in, the real movie, we can take the fact that Dodger didn't seem to have any parents around. He was just always out at the store or going to clubs or whatever. Like his parents are never even mentioned in the movie. So we should do something like that where we have some kind of absentee parents, or for some reason Dodger and his friends are, they're just left to their own devices a lot. And I think that sort of lends itself into, I don't know what it is yet, but there's a moral here. There's some kind of a fable we're telling here.
I got it. So what would an 80s kids movie be without some form of scarring tragedy?
Right. Exactly.
Every 80s movie that we watched as a kid, like anything that was aimed at us, it was like laser focused, like, here kid, have some trauma. So I think that's what we should do here. Is the reason that no parents should be around is we should introduce very early in the movie, like maybe even open the movie with like a dream sequence or a flashback flashback where we see Dodger as a young kid, and maybe it's something like, his family, like his dad, his mom, his baby brother, something like that. And like we could show something like with his mom, maybe she has like I don't know. I don't want to say like a deformity, but like maybe she has like a scar or something that's like noticeably different.
Mm-hmm.
And like we could have like a little flashback soft moment scene where she's talking to Dodger and basically saying, like everybody is unique. Everybody has, something that they can bring to the world. Like no matter how strange or weird they look, everybody has something to offer. And kind of just like show, like, again, that the little moral lesson of like, don't judge a book by its cover, like let people shine, that whole thing. So we have that, and then we could have some horrible tragedy like a car accident or something where mom and baby brother don't make it, and it's like dad and Dodger are left. So now dad is working his ass off, he's like trying to support his son, dealing with like he's a grieving widower, all that kind of stuff. So it would make sense that dad is a little absentee. He's there, he does what he needs to do, he's making it work. But Dodger's kind of a latchkey kid. He's out there doing his own thing. And maybe, maybe he's getting into some shenanigans because he's a little rebellious after losing his mom and brother type of thing. So it might make sense why he would be enticed by this crazy, weird world. Plus, his mom always taught him that, like, there's uniqueness in everybody, and you shouldn't be afraid of what's different. So he's going to see these Garbage Pail Kids and of course be like freaked out at first, but be like, oh, wow, that's cool, and he's going to lean into it. So we have a reason, like, because I'm sorry, the original movie, it bothered the fuck out of me that Dodger was just like, I guess there's an alligator faced dude who wants to eat my toes. That's cool. Like, right? It bothered the shit out of me that he wasn't freaked out. So I feel like if we set that up with like a little moment like that with his parents, then we have the reason where he can just be like, cool, and we can run with it. And we've established it. It makes sense to the story.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's cool. And I think we just need to, so it's like, Dodger and his dad is, dad's trying to make ends meet. He's not around all the time. And, like a lot of kids from the 80s, they're whatever, like you said, they're latchkey, skinned knee kind of kids who just, play outside and explore. And so you have Dodger and hell, even that like name can be some kind of nickname for, remember that time when I don't know, like you were a toddler and you like toddled into the street and you like almost got hit by that car or whatever. Like, some, not that we have to explain it, but it would be kind of funny. So there definitely should be some other kids, and I'm just going to jump right in and say, okay, yes, he's like a boy kid of the 80s. There's going to be a couple other probably dudes in his group, like we always talk about, like maybe the nerdy one, maybe the like punk rock one, maybe the, like think of the Goonies, like who's the chunk, who's the mouth, but I'm thinking like, let's do one that's a little bit different. Let's do I mentioned it earlier, the sort of like, the girls who like shop in the pink aisle, like, so let's do that. Let's have him have a friend who's a girl, and she's a real girly girl. She's a girl from the 80s who likes, Cabbage Patch Kids and Barbies and, all that sort of, pink aisle at KB Toys stuff, very, not a tomboy, just wears dresses, very girly girl, not the typical, the tomboy where like, the girls don't understand me, I just want to like roughhouse with the boys. Not that, but she's just gross. So like, so
she's wearing like the pink dress, but like picking a booger or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Right. Like she's a total girly girl, but like the other girls don't want to play with her because all of her, Barbies, they have like, boogers all stuck in their hair, or like she chopped the hair all off, and like she's got like skinned knees because she's playing outside and like grass stains on everything, and maybe she'll like hawk a loogie and spit, and then the other girls, they all go ew, and then this girl, she's basically like messy Tessie, and she just goes like, what, like what's the problem, like she doesn't get it.
I'm just picturing this little girl like playing hopscotch with her friends, and before it's her turn, just like fucking putting a thumb over her left nostril and horking a snot rocket before she starts skipping.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly it. Like she's just a regular girl, but she's just, gross and like the other girls don't really want to hang out with her. So she hangs out with Dodger, because she's like whatever, like, at least we're going on adventures, but she has like her like, her favorite Barbie that, who has got like, like snot for hair gel, or something.
I'm picturing the Cynthia doll from Rugrats,
Yeah.
but instead of like the missing hair, it's just like crusty hair.
Yeah, exactly. And
nasty.
like I know it hasn't been that long since we did Tessie Trashmouth in the Hot Garbage 3 episode, not that long ago, but
Right.
again I mentioned she's kind of like Missy Tessie, and from who's in the actual movie too, and since we're talking about having these kids sort of turn into Garbage Pail Kids, that would be a neat thing, is if maybe there are some Garbage Pail Kids that we know that like we'll meet, but then we can kind of pattern some of these kids off of, if she were one of the famous characters, this would be Messy Tessie. So obviously her name should just be Tessie.
I like it. Yeah, I think. Well, actually, yeah. Let's use that. Let's pick. Like whoever the next two are, we should style them after existing Garbage Pail Kids. So I know most of the characters in the movie are not the ones I'm fond of.
Yeah.
but,
Yeah.
But and I feel like he was underutilized in the film. But Nat Nerd, the little superhero kid with all the pimples.
Yeah.
Like he didn't really do anything other than just piss again and again and again in the movie. Like there was and you got to have the nerdy friend. So what if we have like the comic book nerd and like his name is like, Nathan or whatever, they call him Nat, and he could be like the big thick Coke bottle glasses with the tape in the middle. And he could always be like, did you know that one of Superman's original powers was he could puke up little mini versions of himself? Like, did you know that? Like he could be that type of like real obnoxious kind of nerd, but also kind of, again, leaning into the gross, like going right to the puke thing instead of, like it should, I feel like there should be an air of grossness with most of these kids because again, we're talking about an 80s gross out property. So all of the kids should be those type of kids that are going to be like, ew, there's a dead possum, get a stick, poke it. They should be those kind of kids. So yeah, I feel let's just have Nat have like the nerdy little kid who's got like, the frizzy hair, the giant thick Coke bottle glasses, and always has like a backpack full of comic books and trading cards and bubble gum and shit like that.
Yeah, perfect. I think that's awesome. Yeah, exactly. He can, and that would be kind of neat too, because when he starts turning into like a Garbage Pail Kid, like later on, maybe he's the one who is kind of bummed out about it. Like, oh, like what the fuck, man? Like, like it's like he's turning into every terrible stereotype of what like a nerdy comic book fan is. Why I gotta have a face full of acne and like, be a bedwetter, like, overweight, slimy, dirty, greasy kid. Like, what the fuck?
Right.
Okay.
Oh my God. That is, I kind of like that the other kids are like, this is cool, and he's like, dude, why?
Right? Oh, okay. So now I'm thinking about like classic Garbage Pail Kids, because I definitely don't know them all, and we've mentioned a few. There's a few that I think are the ones that stand out. Like for me personally, when I think of the Garbage Pail Kids, I think of the one where there looks like there's a guy who's unzipping his face. For me, it's always Unzipped Zach is the name that I know. Again, they always
I didn't remember
names.
the name, but I always loved that card, like the one with the unzipped face. It's cool.
I love him, and I love of course you got to go with Atom Bomb, right? He's the
best one.
He's the classic. He's like on the package, the kid in the schoolboy uniform whose like head is blowing up, like a nuclear bomb. And actually, like. That we should so let's do that. Let's have a kid named Adam who doesn't go to the same school as Dodger and Nat and Tessie. He goes to like some like private school or boarding school or some reason he's wearing this like schoolboy uniform that like Atom Bomb does in the card painting. And maybe we could explain something away, like again, it could be just a neighboring school and he's just wearing the uniform, or I don't know, maybe he goes to maybe he gets sent away to like boarding school because his parents suck, or his parents are very neglectful, or they, whatever, like they don't really pay attention to him much, and they send him away, and maybe he I don't know, maybe he like breaks out of boarding school and like makes his way back home, and we can kind of introduce him, like Dodger and Tessie and Nat like run into him, like, and he's like living in the woods, and like or we do like a jump scare where like they're hanging out in the woods and some kid just jumps out at him, and it's like their buddy Adam, and they're like what are you doing here? Like, aren't you at like the Wilmingham Academy up in Alaska, or whatever the fuck.
Dude, okay. So I know we're not really like going scene by scene here. I'm just kind of throwing out ideas. But what if I love the idea of Adam, being this troubled youth who ended up like in a boarding school. What if it was something like this is a kid who was constantly like shunned by like everybody else in his class, like because he was always pulling pranks on people. He was like throwing firecrackers in toilets, and like he was always fucking around, and his parents like they were just at the end of the rope with this kid, like they didn't know what to do, so they're like, we're gonna send him to boarding school, like he's just never listens to the rules, he's always going against the rules, that type of thing.
Yep.
And we could have it where it's like after Dodger's mom, and after he loses her, like she was the one that was always like, hey, be friends with everybody, like give everybody a chance, like that type of thing. His dad, who is stretched to the fucking limit, he's like working his ass off, working 2 jobs, he's a single dad, lost his wife, lost his other son, like he's just having a fucking hell of a time trying to raise his son the right way. And now his son is hanging out with this troublemaker who's constantly like causing problems, and like they're getting brought home by like the cops for like doing stupid shit, like maybe they were like riding their bikes down the stairs of the school, like out into traffic or something, which is something I did as a kid.
Yeah. Well, hey, again, Dodger,
Right, yeah. So we could have like, he's constantly getting into trouble, and then like, so his dad is like, you can't hang out with him anymore, like everybody's like, don't hang out, he's a bad influence, blah blah blah. Kid gets sent off to boarding school. Now we should have like the kids have a clubhouse, like maybe like I like the idea of it being out in the woods, so it could be like literally that thing that we've seen 1,000 times in cartoons and in 80s kids movies, and hell, in real life. We grew up in the 80s. How many of us had like a clubhouse somewhere away from home? Like just and it was usually a shanty, put together by like
right.
fucking pallets and boxes, or like there might have been a hobo sleeping in there the night before. We don't know. We just found a little box and we're hiding in it.
Right.
It was always something like that. So yeah, it should be some kind of clubhouse in the woods, and they go there to hang out, and they find Adam and find out like he broke out of boarding school. He was like, screw that place. Like, I'm not going to listen to their stupid rules. Like, look what they got me wearing. And he's like wearing like the dirty uniform. And they're like, why don't you change? Like, I can't go home for my clothes. My parents will send me back there.
Right.
So it's like he's just subsisting on like fucking candy and comic books in the fucking clubhouse.
Nice. Yeah. That's awesome. And we got to make it a thing that, just like Messy Tessie, or like Tessie, like obviously she's gross, and we're kind of presaging the fact that she's going to be Messy Tessie, the character. We should have it be that, like, yeah, when they first get to the clubhouse, we got to orchestrate some scene where early in the movie where Dodger and Tessie and Nat kind of hook up, and they're like, they're racing out, like, last one to the clubhouse eats flies, or whatever the fuck, some dumb thing, right? And they're like racing out there, and there's some, there's one of those like dumb like synthy like 80s movies, like soundtrack songs just playing, and they get out to the clubhouse, and as they rush in, maybe Dodger stops, and he's like, whoa, like somebody's been here, there's like comics and candy, somebody's been into our stash. And this is where we can have one of the other kids be like, man, I bet it was Juice and his fucking cronies, like, these guys are always like pushing us around. And then they hear like pop 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 pop, and they all jump and scream because freaking Adam, like he snuck up behind him and he threw like cherry bombs at him, right? Or like M80s or something, because we got to set the stage that like he's really into, like, he's got like a pocket full of like little firecrackers and like little bombs and stuff,
He likes blowing shit up.
Yeah, exactly.
I like the idea of having Nat mention the bullies here, because like we can get them brought up before we ever see them. So yeah, I love this. Like how we could do that whole opening, like we said, the cold opening with the tragedy, and see like how Dodger has been navigating his life. We see like some quick interludes with the different kids. Like we see Tessie, like I said, doing the hopscotch with the snot rocket. The other girls looking at her Barbie dolls like, ew, there's boogers. Like, and she's like, what's up? We have all that, and then we have the scene with like, maybe even Dodger's, like maybe it could be narrated, like Dodger's like, it's tough being a kid in the 80s. And he can like talk about, and we just have like a montage flashback scene and be like, even my best friend Adam got sent away to boarding school, like, and now all I can hang out with is Nat and Tessie, and they're okay, but Adam was like my real bud. Like we could have that whole thing, just so we can immediately jump right to the bikes, the synth music, boom, off to the clubhouse. We've already established that Adam is out of the picture, so when he comes back, even though it was only 5 minutes ago, when he comes back, it's like, oh cool, he's back.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I love that. And I normally am not a fan of going with the narration. I don't believe or agree with this piece of writing advice I once heard years ago, especially for screenplays, which is that if you have to rely on a narration, that you failed to like explain your story. But I think that some movies work way better with narration.
It's the whole thing of show don't tell, and I 100% agree with that, 100%. But I do feel like it is an 80s trope. And when we're making like a tropey story like this, I feel like it totally works.
No, absolutely. I totally agree. I think like you look at like Stand By Me or like Goodfellas or The Shawshank Redemption.
Yes.
Like some great movies have narration, and I wouldn't think that any of those were poorly written or that the screenwriter like took the easy way out. Like I think it's Robert McKee from his script writing book Story that like everybody in Hollywood thinks is the Bible of how to write a script, and he had all these like rules in there. He also hated Deus Ex Machina and all kinds of other things that that sometimes are cool, but anyway. So yeah, I love that. I love the narration because it helps us like to streamline things. Yeah, we can kind of start with a flashback. We see like you said, Dodger's mom, she tells him like the good lesson about believing in everybody no matter what they look like and accepting people, and then we either see her get killed or like Dodger can explain it, and then we fast forward to like modern day, and maybe it's like modern day and he's like, yeah, now it's just me and my dad, and you see that his dad's like a garbage collector. Like you see his dad like on the back of a garbage truck, like grabbing a garbage can or whatever, and and emptying it. So again, his dad kind of has this job, or maybe the other kids are like, ew, gross, like your dad picks up garbage for a living. Like these are all kind of outcast kids, and right. And then we can kind of have Dodger like take off on his bike and be like like everybody calls me or better yet, he's like, my dad's always called me Dodger ever since I was little. Like my real name's Roger, but ever since that time I was 2 and I toddled out into traffic and somehow I made it to the other side of the street. Like it was like I dodged between all the cars. My dad said it was my the luckiest day of my life. So ever since then I've always been Dodger instead of Roger, or whatever.
Nice.
And then like it would be funny too, like not that he's a Garbage Pail Kid card himself, but like if we were to make up one, there's something in my head of like of like some kid who's like dodging traffic and like just being like shaved by the cars going by and like his skin peeling off the back of him or something like that, like dodging Roger or something. Anyway.
Nice.
But yeah, this is great. We can just introduce that, and then boom, yeah, the music plays. He's off. He stops by Tessie's, or he sees Tessie like on the sidewalk somewhere, and like she's trying to play Barbies with the other girls, and they're all like, ew, gross, because she like sneezes right into her hand and then like wipes it on her shirt, and then she kind of and just like in a lot of these movies, like you kind of like pick up the gang, and then he stops by, like there's got to be like the little like the convenience store, and this is like when I was a kid. We had this convenience store. What was it called? Like the Whitehaven Pantry or something like that. It's this this franchise that's like a Wilson Farms kind of place that was in Massachusetts, and he stops by like the convenience store, and that's where there's other kids hanging out, and they're like they're like blowing bubble gum and looking at baseball cards, and then you see like Nat's there like looking at a comic book, trying not to have the other kids like notice him over there looking at the little superhero comic, and and then Dodger and Tessie come up and Nat rolls with them. Like it's okay if they know because like they're like his gang, and then they head out to the clubhouse. Here comes Adam pop with the M80s, and then Adam Adams there, and it's like, yeah, like we're 5 minutes in, and we've introduced all four main characters, and we've mentioned at least that there's like some gang of bullies that we have to watch out for. Like, that's awesome.
I think we keep this train running. So what because again, kids movie, short attention spans. We're dealing with kids. You want to keep it going, keep it moving. So like we've introduced all this stuff. We have Nat make the comment like when they first get to the clubhouse. They see like candy wrap, like their big bag of candy like open and candy wrappers everywhere and like comic books open. And Nat's like, oh no, I bet Juice and his gang were here. And like they kind of do like the he's kind of knocking his knees together, and maybe we could even have Tessie be like, "Don't piss yourself, piss pants," or something like that. Like,
yeah, nice.
And he's just like, "Shut up!" The two start shoving each other, and then Dodger be like, "Shut up! I thought I heard something," and then have the pop, and have them all jump. And Adam Bomb, we have the reunion with Adam Bomb, or with Adam. We get all the like the hugs out of the way, the talk, the conversation. I broke out. I got out of the boarding school, and they're like, "Well, why are you still wearing the uniform?" He's like, "Dude, I can't go home. I'm stuck wearing this stupid outfit." And like we have the whole back and forth. He's been bunking in the fucking clubhouse, in the middle of the night, like just subsisting on candy. But like maybe Nat could just be like, "I thought Juice and his boys were here," and then have like we hear like some sticks break or like the crunch of like fucking leaves or something. They turn and we just see like the three standard 80s bullies, the white kid with like the buzz cut mullet.
Yes.
And he's got the fingerless gloves on and the t-shirt with no sleeves. Yeah. And there's like it's like a real faded like baseball logo or something on his shirt, and he's just like punching his fist like, "You rang, little bitch," like, but obviously not swearing, like, "You rang, nerdy boy," or Nat Nerd or whatever we want to call him.
Yeah,
and they're nerd. Just like cheese it, it's Juice in the gang, like they take off. And then we have like and he, of course, Juice is going to have his two cronies. I don't know what we want to name him, but we have to have like the big dude, like the fat guy. There's always the fat guy. He's got like, it's the quote unquote 80s muscle. They always looked like the 80s wrestlers where they had like dad bod and man tits, but you knew they were going to bust some heads. Yeah. like picture Dan Connor in like season 3 of Roseanne.
Oh yeah. What he was, yeah. Oh, okay. Hang on. I'm looking at the Garbage Pail Kids cards. The first season there was like this giant baby called Slobby Robbie or Fat Matt. That could be one of them.
Right.
Or we could do that thing that they do in all these 80s movies. Like we mentioned it 100 times before, when there's the overweight kids named Chunk and Fat Kid.
Chunk.
Like. Yeah.
We should call him Tubbs.
Yeah. Tubbs. That's
Tubbs.
Good. All right.
I was thinking, was it Miami Vice?
Oh yeah, Crockett and Tubbs. Yeah.
Yeah. Keeping with the 80s theme. So we have like the black-haired, man-boobed, fucking like fat muscle, and then you got to have like the scrawny little weaselly dude that kind of looks like Beavis with an oversized Adam's apple, just like the scrawny little nerdy, crony who's like, "Hey, get him, guys," like that type of guy.
Oh yeah, totally. Hang on a second. Hang on. Since we're on the Miami Vice kick, hang on. I gotta check and see when did that come out? Yeah, okay. So Miami Vice would have already been out by then. Okay, so yeah, let's just call these cronies Crockett and Tubbs, and this guy, he'll wear one of those fucking Davy Crockett like coonskin caps on. Yeah.
Fuck yes.
And he'll look like Scott Farkas,
Dude, yes. I knew a kid who did that, who wore the fucking Davy Crockett hat, and he was one of these guys. He was the scrawny little dude. He had fucking red hair and a mullet. But I'm not going to name his name in case he's listening, because I still do know this guy.
And yellow eyes, so help me God, yellow eyes.
Yes. Oh my God. So if the kid I'm talking about, if he was a bully, he would be this guy. That's kind of exactly what I'm picturing. So like the scrawny dude, I love the coonskin cap. Like that dude, that's fucking perfect. But yeah, so like, and he could be like freckly and have like, you know, he clearly is a nerd, but he's hanging out with the bullies because he doesn't want to be bullied.
Yeah.
So it's that character. But yeah, so of course, you know, we're gonna have our gang be like, you know, let's get the hell out of here type of thing. So they're gonna get on their bikes and take the hell off. But maybe they have to do something like, because they're not on their bikes, maybe Adam, you know, throws some cherry bombs or something at them and like startles them, and then they're like, get out of here quick, and they all like, they take off, and Adam doesn't have a bike, so he hops on the back of Dodger's and they're like taking off, you know, and he's just like go 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 like as the bullies are chasing them.
Nice.
And so let's have a, you know what, okay, you mentioned that Dodger's dad is a garbage man. So this is perfect. Where are you go? Like when you're a kid and you're in trouble, who do you run to? You run to your parents.
Yep.
You know, you run to safety. So they're out and about, and he's going to be like, Dad's at work. Go to the city dump.
Nice. Perfect. Yeah.
So they're going to ride through. So we're going to get the chase through town, like picture, you know, the Back to the Future, you know, like the car is chasing, you know, that whole thing. We're going to have them on their bikes, the bullies chasing after them, but, you know, all sorts of city hijinks, you know, dodging through cars. We could even do, like, if we really wanted to up it, like the actual Garbage Pail Kids movie did, where it's like, this is fucking absurd. We could have the two guys carrying the plate glass window, be like, oh, watch it.
Yeah,
we could do that whole thing.
No, this is perfect. Like the chase scene to, you know, the it kind of sounds like it could be on the radio pop song that they wrote for the movie, you know.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, and they're just like, they're just running through town, like you said, you know, dodging right up on the sidewalk, like you know, crossing the street, like, you know, we do those things where, like, you know, there's cars that are like, you know, screeching to a halt and, like, you know, kitty corner to each other, like almost hitting, you know, and they're like knocking over fruit stands, or like, you know, like stacks of magazines at the newsstand on the corner, and like all the adults are like shaking their fists like, you kids, you know, like whatever.
we have to have the one old guy like he's carrying his groceries and he's about to step off the curb into the street, and then, like, you know, Dodger and his boys go flying, but he's he's dodging out of the way, and he's like shaking his fist like, damn you kids, watch where you're going, and then he turns and like the bullies go zipping by him and he spins around like, ah! You know, we'll do that whole like just physical dumb comedy, because again, kids movie.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I don't know why I'm picturing the scene where, like, there's this other kid who's kind of being bullied too, like some kid who's clearly a few years younger than, you know, Dodger and his friends, like, you know, some little elementary school kid, and there's some, like, you know, great big guy with like a, you know, and like a baseball uniform for some reason, who's just you know, shaking the kid down for like his milk money, and, you know, has him by, you know, like by the front of his shirt, like, you know, just like in the real movie, like somebody who's way too old to be picking on kids, you know, and then Dodger and his friends come racing down the sidewalk, and, you know, and then here comes Juice and the other two, and they're on bikes, and then right when like Dodger and his friends race by, like, you know, the baseball guy bully like looks up for a second, and then the little kid just like twists around and, you know, kind of turns them around, and he puts the baseball bully like right in the middle of the sidewalk, and he fucking gets mowed down by the other three, who like slam into him on their bikes. You know, maybe you know, Tubbs and Crockett kind of go flying, you know, they all spill, and, you know, and then we Juice, he's got to do that thing where, you know, or Juice is going to keep on, you know, coming like, I'm going to get you kids, you know, yell after him like the fucking Wicked Witch, you know, and then he's going to keep on chasing him all the way to the dump, and, you know, and Tubbs and Crockett will catch up. But I just think, again, just like for a bit of business, you know, and like a little bit of karmic justice, like, you know, bullies fucking up other bullies, because, you know, what the fuck, why not?
I dig it. And it totally works in a montage scene like this. So, but yeah, so we have them, like, you know, the kids keep going, and like the bullies obviously got tripped up. Kids keep going, they make their way to the city dump, you know, and then they're like, maybe it's just simple as like, we gotta hide, you know, like they're coming for us type of thing. You know, like maybe when they get there, we see, like, you know, them closing up for the night or whatever. I don't know. It's a fucking city dump. I don't know how long they're open, but we have, like, basically what they thought was safety is not safety. Like, Dad isn't there. There's no adults there, you know, or like, or maybe there are adults there, but, you know, they're on the other side of the facility, whatever. We just see them like ride their bikes into the garbage dump, and then like maybe he runs up to like I'm picturing like one of those work trailers where, like, you know, so he's running up and like pounds on the door. He's like, nobody's here. And then we see Juice and the others like coming around the corner. They're like, guys, hide. And they run and hide in the garbage. Like that's
Nice,
it.
nice.
We need to have some kind of like tense moment where the bullies are there and like all of the kids, like all 4 kids, are just like hiding on I don't know, like hiding in garbage cans or hiding in a dumpster or just hiding in the trash in general.
Yeah, yeah, I like this too. Yeah, and I wasn't really doing it on purpose. I was just having like some fun with like the little chase montage. But yeah, this actually makes sense if the bullies get kind of tripped up, and it gives us an excuse to slow them down so that Dodger and his friends can get there. They can talk for a second, like what are we gonna do? Like we gotta hide, like like over here, like quick, we'll hide behind these trash cans or whatever. So they go to hide, and like the bullies show up, and maybe it's that like they're hiding. There's this tense moment, like you said, but then. Messy Tessie or like sneezes or something, somebody like makes a noise or hell, we could go like, maybe Nat Nerd pees himself. I don't know if we want to do that, but something happens where it just catches like Juice's attention. He's like, I see you little punks. And he starts barreling through, these like the trash cans, like the metal trash cans, push them out of the way. And then Dodger and his friends are like, oh shit, like run, and they turn and they're sort of like running into the dump. And then they see this there's got to be like a spill of like trash cans with like the like green toxic waste stuff that's like spilling off the back of a truck, like I don't know, like for some reason it looks like like the truck that was carrying the toxic waste that gave Daredevil and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles their powers, like it ended up in the dump, and like these barrels are like spilling off
the radioactive isotope.
Yeah, exactly. And like, but and they just like dive for like in here, guys, and they just like dive into these trash cans that are like sitting in like a pile of like green goo or whatever. But they dive in head first, thinking that they're gonna hide, but then they just keep going like it's a water slide. It's like they just dive in like and they, I mean, it's like, oh my god, like what is this like weird like glowing green portal in the bottom of the trash can? And we could just get them right to Garbage Pail Land in what, like 10 minutes into the movie, 15 minutes.
Oh, dude. Okay. All right. Let's back up for a second. Like, I love the idea of I love all of this. So, but we have we had already made the comment earlier when the kids are like establishing themselves and like they're talking about the bullies and they're like somebody's been in their clubhouse where Tessie refers to Nat as like pissy pants. Like
Yeah.
like calm down, pissy pants. And I was like, shut up. And they fight back and forth. So yes, I love the idea of Nat actually pissing himself. They could be hiding, like maybe they're hiding behind a dumpster or something, and like, or hiding, like you said, the garbage cans or whatever. They're hiding somewhere where like we see the bullies like looking around, and like we kind of do that like POV scan where we see like Juice looking around all squinty eyed, and then we go to POV scan and we're like moving across the junkyard, and then we just see like a little puddle like leaking out from behind, and he's like, I see you, you fucking piss pants, and like Nat's like, oh no, like they're like, damn it, Nat, so then they start running, and like we see that they're running deeper into the dump, and they go to the part you're talking about with all the green goo garbage cans, like maybe at the center of the dump, right? And like Juice is chasing after him, but he's like knocking cans out of the way. Like he can't maneuver as easily through them because he's a bigger dude.
Yeah.
And he's at that awkward pubescent age where all of your limbs are too long, and
Right.
So he's like knocking shit out of the way, and to your point, they jump in the cans because they got nowhere else to go. So they're like, maybe this garbage can will protect me from a beating, and they jump in, and yeah, they slide down. And I'm picturing like, for anyone that's listening, if you haven't seen, if you've seen, I should say, A New Nightmare, when Nancy goes under the covers to like go into the dream world, and like she starts just crawling down the blankets, and then suddenly it's a fucking slide, and it shoots her out into the nightmare world. Like that's kind of what I'm picturing here. So like
Nice.
they jump into the cans and they start sliding on the green goo, and it's like, where's the bottom of the fucking can? And it's just like more goo, and then like as they're sliding down this tunnel of slime, you start seeing like crusty gunk on the sides of the walls, and it's like getting more colorful and grotesque, and then it just like they shoot out like through like some, I'm picturing like a viscous membrane, like the remember the slime in the Super Mario Brothers movie,
Yeah,
like where they're
yeah.
like, all this toadstool goo is everywhere. I'm picturing like that rubber cement booger line, and they
Nice.
just like break through it and fly out like from like a really high vantage point. Like they
Hmm.
fall from a
Oh yeah.
ridiculously high spot,
And
and they're just like,
the slow
oh
motion,
my
yeah.
god,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
The slow motion fall. Oh.
And you just see like towers made of garbage and like homes made of garbage cans. Like there's garbage cans with windows and a doorway and like just this crazy fucking garbage world. And like the kids go flying down and they're looking at concrete covered in like apple cores and like pennies and gum, and it's just like, oh crap. And they all just slam into the ground with like a ridiculous amount of force, like to
Hmm.
the point where they like their faces flatten, and then they all
Yes.
pull up, almost like in Roger Rabbit with like Judge Doom, like where
Nice.
like they pull back and then their heads return to normal. They're like, we're alive? What the hell? Like they're just like looking around all freaked out. And it's like, so that's our first example of they can do anything in this world. They didn't die after that ridiculously long fall onto concrete.
Right? Nice. Yeah, no, it's awesome. Yeah, they just kind of like splatter like cartoons. Yeah, and then
Hmm.
they get up and they look around, and yeah, it's like it should look. Should it look like that? Maybe it's like their town, kind of similar, but it's just like trashed, or
Yeah.
but it's also kind of like the physics are weird. Like maybe there's sidewalks that just kind of like, they angle up and just into the sky, like just straight up, or
Dude.
like they go like over a hill and there's like buildings that are like hanging on sideways, or there could be like horrific stuff too. Like there's I don't know, like just for some reason there's like a dog house, but instead of like being like a dog, it's like a dog house is full of bones and the dog is sitting in the bowl, like something like that.
Yeah, oh, dude. Okay. So what I'm picturing, I love the idea of it mirroring their town. So kind of like the Upside Down in Stranger Things, where it
Hmm.
mirrors their town. But I'm also picturing. Do you remember Cool World?
Oh yeah.
Like when the dude goes into Cool World, and it's like everything is it's cartoon, so it's like structurally wrong. Like
Hmm.
buildings are at a bent, like the road is like going like up and down into the sky kind of thing.
Yeah.
So what if it's like that but with garbage? So it's their town, but it's like one of the buildings look like it's made out of like a metal trash can, but it's like that's City
Oh
Hall, but it looks like it's
yeah.
made out of a garbage can. Or like, people like those are cars, but they're dumpsters. Like it's like someone driving a dumpster down the street. Like it's just complete nonsense, but all garbage themed.
Oh yeah.
Instead of like bushes and stuff in their front yard, they got like piles of trash, or they got like, maybe like the town statue is covered in like chewed gum and apple cores,
Yeah.
stuff like
Yeah. It's
that. Like
awesome.
everything is just garbage world.
No, that's perfect. Yeah. Oh, and like I'm not sure like if they've like seen any people yet, but like when they do, like they should totally like look around. You mentioned like there's someone's bushes is like a big pile of garbage. There's got to be some dad looking garbage pail kid with that like cherub doll face, but it's like okay, it's clearly a dad who's out there with like his shears, like he's trimming the bushes, and he's just like cutting banana peels off the top of it or something.
Right.
Oh man, yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, they look around and it's like this weird garbage version of their town, and yeah, I love that. Yeah, we do like another like quick little montage. We scan around, and then I think we got to start seeing like some garbage pail kids. Like I don't know if they should come up just like maybe one, or if there's like a group of them. I'm kind of picturing like the camera is sort of spinning around from like Dodger's POV as he's like looking at all these weird garbage versions of things, and the camera's maybe getting faster, like he's kind of freaking out, and then suddenly he turns and like right in front of him is like, let's use like unzipped Zach. Like there's this kid with like half his face unzipped and his skull sticking sticking out, and you stop and look at that, and then Dodger just screams like, ah, like he freaks out, like there's a monster, and then, he starts to back up, and his other friends turn to look and see, like, what are you screaming at? Oh my God, ah! And then, they go to turn to like run away, but they can't because, there's like, I don't know, like Nasty Nick or, some of the other Garbage Pail Kids who were kind of like coming to see like what the hell's going on, like what's the big commotion in like the town square, and like now it's like they're being surrounded by what to them look like monsters. Here comes like Lizard Liz or whatever, and and we got to have this moment where they're going to get really tense, like, oh my God, like what are we doing? And of course, Nat Nerd's going to piss himself again, and and then
I love this because like the whole them hitting the ground, them looking around, being like, "What the hell?" Like they're first of all they're shocked they're alive, and then they're surprised with the crazy world they're in. And I love the POV pan around, and we should see people. But like it should be kind of like movement. We're not getting a good look at their faces. So like we see like what clearly looks like little people moving around, like you said, doing the hedge trimmers. Like maybe we just see them from the back, like they're trimming hedges, and like it's a banana peel that they're trimming. And then like I said, you see the dumpster, like it's a dumpster turned into a car, like driving down the road, and they just quickly get a glance of like maybe there's like a bearded looking baby, like, yeah, get out of the way, kids, and they drive by, and then like we see from behind, we see like a crowd coming up on these kids, and then have like Dodger turn again, that POV, and like you said, Unzip Zach is right there, and have them panic, and then everywhere they look, it's like a close up on another face, like so a close up on like you had mentioned, was it Lizard Liz? Like, so close up on her, and then like maybe the Drippy Dan where he's got all the holes in him.
Yeah.
And then just like we're panning back and forth, like and maybe we could do something like again, Nat, who's terrified, he pisses himself, and then maybe they're just like, hey, and they're all like, hey, cool, and they start clapping him on the back. Like,
yeah.
all the kids are into it, and they're just like, what? And then we can have our
nice.
Explanation moment, like welcome to the Garbage Pail Kid universe, whatever we want to call it, welcome to Trash Town, I'm the trash man.
Yeah. I know. I can't help but like want to make a connection in here somewhere, like, can we have a second podcast episode where we make a dumpster chase a guy?
Exactly.
All those hot garbage episodes, like there's got to be a little Easter egg in here somewhere,
Oh, 100%. Like we could totally have a dumpster chase guy.
Oh yeah. Okay, now it's gonna bother me. Okay, we didn't think about like what Garbage Pail Kid world like what it would be called. So like, hang on, now I gotta figure it out. Like let's not stop while I'm googling words, but like let me try and see if I can figure out a cool name for it. But yeah, welcome to fill in the blank of whatever GPK land is gonna be, and we can we got to kind of like orient Dodger and his friends, like where are they?
Well, and I think like once we do that reveal, we should cut from there back to the real world where we see like Juice and his bullies like throwing the garbage cans out of the way, and like maybe he picks up the garbage can that they clearly went into, and it's there's a bottom to it, like there's all this green goo, but he's like, where the hell are they? And he's like throwing the cans, and he's like, I'm gonna get you, Dodger, like, so we have the like he's pissed, kind of like the the Goonies scene where he's like, you Goonie,
yeah. Andy, you Goonie.
Troy.
Yeah, I love it.
But yeah, so we do that, and then we cut back to the Garbage Pail Kid world, and we see like Unzip Zach and like some of the others like walking them through the town, showing them around, and be like, hey, over here we got the post office, and we see that it's like their post office, but instead of like mail, it's first of all it's all junk mail, but for them the junk mail is like a soda can, like an empty soda can in an envelope taped closed, or like
nice.
Just total like it's a used diaper in a box, like, and we see like the postal workers just putting garbage in boxes and like zipping it up and throwing it on one of the dumpster trucks, like, so we see that, and then it's like we have town hall, or like city hall over here, and like where you'll meet the mayor. We could make up some character, or there might even be one that I'm not thinking of. like a mayor character who's doing something gross, like maybe he's like, plucking a booger out and signing a document with it, just like all this gross shit, right? And we go through like town, like all through the town, and kind of like introduce everybody and be like, hey, so who are you guys? It's like, well, I'm Dodger, and this is Tessie, and have them all like excited to meet them all and all that, and then like have them really excited about Nat though, because he's the one that pissed his pants.
Yeah.
And like, remember, he's the nerdy kid, so they're like, and who's this little slugger here? This is my buddy. There's like slapping him on the back, and he's like, Nat. And they're like, yeah, you're cool, man. Like, you're cool by me. And it's just like, for the first time ever, Nat's just like, holy crap. Like,
Right.
I'm popular here.
You're like, oh, that's awesome. Nice. Yeah, that's awesome.
Man.
No, yeah, this is great. Yeah, we kind of like, we kind of have like Nat like just immediately fit in, and we can do the same thing too. Like, maybe Tessie is just kind of like, oh, I don't know about this, like Dodger, like this place is giving me the creeps. Like, we got to figure out how to get out of here. And then she's like, oh, okay, achoo, and like this big sneeze, and she just like, like she always does. She doesn't like sneeze into her shirt or her elbow or whatever. She just sneezes right into her palm, and she pulls her hand away, and it's like this big sticky mess that she just like wipes on her shirt, right? And then you see like some of the other kids are like, hey, like that's awesome, like that's so messy, whatever it is. Like, I can't do the dialogue, but like we just we kind of give each one of them like a little scene where where they can kind of immediately get excited about like the Garbage Pail Kids are going to welcome them, and they all feel like they're welcome to be here. Maybe there's some other character too who like notices that maybe Adam pulls out one of his M80s, like a defensive weapon, and they kind of realize that he's got it. Like, check this out, and one of them throws like a big cartoon like bomb ball, the big bowling ball looking bombs, throws that, and then Adam's like, whoa, sweet, like let's do it again,
Dude, that's exactly what we should do. We should have like, and there's the two names for each character as well. So like, what if for Messy Tessie, I don't know what the other one is, but like maybe there is another little girl who's like covered in boogers, and like when Tessie like does that thing where she sneezes into her hands, she's like just wipes it on herself. The other girl could be like, hey, I like her, or something, like have her like, right on, sister, have some kind of thing where we see there's another booger kid, and have Atom Bomb, maybe that could like trigger it. Like Atom Bomb does the whole thing where he takes out his firecrackers, and have what is it, Mean Gene, the one with the machine gun and the dynamite, have him be like, yeah, it's cool, but check this out, and he lights like a cartoonishly oversized bomb and like throws it, and it explodes and like makes a giant crater, and then everything like reforms. So they see like, wait a second, like you can do whatever you want here. Like physics do not apply.
Yeah, that's awesome. Oh, I love that. I love that idea too. Yeah, Leaking Lindsay is the other one that is the opposite of Messy Tessie, or the alternate name. Yeah, Leaking Lindsay. I like that. Like we get right into it. Like suddenly they're all really welcome. Like you said, we kind of show off like the physics of what's his name, Mean Gene or whatever you said. Like he blows up his bomb. He blows up one of the other. There's probably some other Garbage Pail Kid that I could think of. We could probably find that it's like somebody who's being blown to bits on their card. We could just have it be that kid, and yeah, it just immediately showed that like, oh, the physics of like they go right back to normal. Like, oh my god, like that's crazy. And we already showed that when the kids fell out of the sky that they were fine, and I feel like Adam would be the one who would just be like, he would either do it on purpose, or he just wouldn't be afraid to try, and we would see the physics of him, like he goes to throw a bomb or whatever, like you said, and it's like, oh shit, like I just formed right back together, like this is crazy, like this is awesome, come on Dodger, let's do it again, and the other three of them are just like immediately bought in. Dodger as our main character, like I feel like it should take him a little bit longer, like he should be a little bit more skeptical, but I think eventually he should kind of come around to, like you said at the beginning, the drama is that like, oh, like they can't stay there forever. So I think eventually he'll like it there, but like Dodger's got to be a little bit more skeptical.
I also think it makes sense for him though, because from like a story point of view, because he's the only one of our main characters who has faced death. he has actually faced a real life loss in the real world. He lost his mother and his brother. So therefore, like, he might not be as enamored with the idea of taking his life into his own hands, even in a world where that doesn't matter. Like, he might kind of just be a little more hesitant than the other kids who have never faced real loss. So they're just kind of like, this is awesome, do it again. And he's just like, I feel like he should still be, because he's a kid and he's, he's a nerdy kid. He's going to be excited, but a little more cautious. So I feel like it does make sense for him to kind of be the last one to kind of accept the Garbage Pail Kid thing. But maybe we could use that as a story point. He's one of the last ones to accept, but because he notices his friends turning.
Nice.
He notices them start to turn. So like we could implement, this is where we could kind of put that into the movie of like, we can't stay here or we'll become like them.
Yeah.
Like we have to leave, that type of thing. But you were mentioning the thing with Mean Gene and like blowing up stuff. I think one of the things we should do just for some comedic business is we do the thing where he throws the bomb and it explodes and then it all forms back together. And remember, we're talking about an 80s kids movie. So guns are still on the table. Guns are on the table, bombs are on the table, crazy fucking shit is on the table because it's an 80s kids movie. This was before the orange tips on all plastic toy guns. So we should have a moment where Mean Gene is like, you think that's cool? Check this out. And he takes like a giant M60 out and just starts fucking spraying across the crowd, and we see like all these different Garbage Pail Kids getting like shot up, but then we need to have Slain Wayne, the one who's like we literally see him in the background put a cigarette in his mouth, tie the blindfold over his eyes, and put his hands behind his back. So it's like, those that know, but we have that little bit of comedic business in the background. But of course everyone's fine, like the bullets fly back out of them, and like it's almost like their skin is rubber, like they get all shot up, like and then like the holes like reform and pop the bullets back out. They're like, whoop. And they're like, that's funny, Gene. And it's like, just, again, they can't die. Nothing can happen to them.
Yeah, no, I love it. Oh, this is cool. I love this. Real quick, I don't know if it's a good idea, but I was trying to figure out that whole idea of like, garbage pail. Like, how do we figure out a way to make that, like, work it into the story? And again, it might not be a great idea, but I was trying to think of is there like a word that means like town or village or something that kind of sounds like pal or pal or, something similar. And I couldn't really figure it out, but I just thought there are places in the country with silly names like Dinner Pail, Iowa, or whatever, because, like there's all kinds of weird like town names, like, Truth or Consequences in New Mexico,
Right.
But what if we show at one point during that chase through town earlier in the movie, we just back up and we just insert a scene where the kids race by like town hall. They're being chased by the bullies, and we see, I don't know, maybe there's somebody outside putting up a sign, or there's just like a statue, but we see that the name of the town, it's like, it's Tops Pail, like TOPPS, the Tops company that
yes,
right. So it's like, it's called like, like it's the village of Tops Pail, or it's Tops Pail, Pennsylvania or whatever. Like, that's just the name of the town. And then when we see the garbage version of it, when we're like panning around town, we kind of end that little, the little montage where we see all the garbage versions of things. We end it with that same shot of the front of City Hall with the statue or the sign, but instead of saying Tops Pail, it's like scratched out, like somebody gouged out the word tops and then graffitied garbage in its place.
Dude, we could even fucking show that happening. Like when they're walking around town, we could show fucking, was it New Wave Dave? He's the one with the spray paint.
Mm-hmm.
So he's literally like, we could have the little punk rocker kid like as was it Unzipped Zach, I think was his name.
The kid with the zipper in his face, otherwise known as Bony Tony.
Right. So we could have them like, whatever our little group of like our welcome wagon of Garbage Pail Kids, as they're like showing them around the town, we could even have them be like, and then we got, Graffiti Petey over there, like putting up our new sign. And he's spray painting, the garbage pail. Like, nice. It's like, that's fucking cool. Yeah, no, I'm digging this. I'm actually having fun with a
Yeah,
Garbage Pail Kids movie.
I know,
This
right?
is kind of crazy.
I know, right?
We have to like, we can't spend too much time here. We have to like see what's going on in the real world. So do we want to like, I don't know if we should do something like, show that, hours have passed, like maybe dad's home and like wondering where Dodger is. And like he calls the other parents and like they haven't seen their kids either. So now it's like, we want to like alert the parents this early and have like the parents searching, like, because what I think would be the fun duality here is to have like the kids are off on this adventure and like three of the four kids are really enjoying it. Again, like drawing that parallel between the Twilight Zone episode I was talking about, where it's like you have everybody's enjoying their time
Hmm.
in this world without rules, except Dodger. Dodger's a little bit hesitant. Like he's having fun, but he has that little bit of like, responsibility in the back of his head. So like I want to have the duality of like the fun time in the garbage pail world and then like the sober like darkness of like what the parents are going through. Like their kids are missing, what happened to them, the town is going to be searching for these kids. So it's like, it's that gravity of responsibility. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
it is a kids movie, but we still have to have like a moral lesson. And we if we're going to be showing this to children, like the people making it would have to still be like, okay, now kids, don't go running away looking for a magical land. Your parents will miss you, type of thing. Like we still need to include that in the story. Plus, it adds some suspense.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right. I don't know that we need to spend a ton of time on it, but yeah, I think it's a good idea. We come back to the real world and we show Dodger's dad probably as the most concerned, and he's calling up Nat's parents, and maybe he tries to call Adam's parents, but like the phone just rings and rings, and we could have him make some comment about that. Like he's talking to somebody like a coworker or a neighbor or one of the other parents, and he can mention like, oh, I can't get a hold of Dodger's friend Adam. I can't get a hold of his parents. Like they don't ever seem to be home. It's something
Right.
like that, right? Just to kind of draw that parallel too. And I think it would be interesting if there's a crowd of the parents who are like, like what should we do? Like, we should go look for them. Like, oh yeah, I saw them tearing through town earlier on their bikes. They were racing with that Juice and those other kids they hang out with. Like just kids screwing around. And yeah, maybe Juice's dad's there, but Juice's dad is he's like a big tall, tough-looking, motherfucker. He's like a truck driver or something, and he kind of walks up with Juice, like he's got Juice's his hand is on Juice's shoulder, like his trap muscle with like a death grip, kind of pushing Juice to the crowd, like tell these people what happened with you and those kids earlier. Like it's clear that Juice, like his dad, is like tough.
Right.
I think like what's his name, like Billy from Stranger Things, like season 2 and 3, right? Like was it
Yep.
Billy, Max's older brother or stepbrother?
Yeah.
And the way that like his dad was like really tough on him, that same kind of thing. And Juice is like, yeah, we were just playing like like tag, like I was just chasing them, and things got a little crazy. You know how kids are. Like, come on, Dad, like we're just goofing around. I told you, and yeah,
Yep.
and then it would be kind of ironic if Dodger's dad, he kind of sees that like, oh, clearly Juice and his dad don't have a great relationship, and maybe he could be like, yeah, you know what, Juice, and maybe Juice's dad smacks him like, you're like, I told you to stop telling these people to call you Juice, like Eugene, or whatever, like,
Yes.
like, and he's like, and then Dodger's dad is like, okay, sorry, Eugene, like, since I know you're friends with my boys, and the other boys here, like, you can help us look for him. Like, tell you what, why don't you come with me and like, and tell us the last place you saw him. He's like, well, they ran into the dump and like they were playing hide and seek in the garbage, but I never found him. I guess they must have just like ran off after that, And he's like, okay, like we'll start there. And I think it would be an interesting pairing. I'm just riffing this, like improving it, but an interesting pairing to get Dodger's dad and Juice, who like together go to the dump to like look for the kids. But of course, Juice's ulterior motive is like, oh, if I find those little motherfuckers, like I'm really gonna get them now. Like they got me in trouble with my dad. Like I'm gonna fucking pound those little punks.
I'll show them.
Yeah, like I'm not sure like where that can go, and to be honest, like at the risk of like rushing through the story, I feel like we kind of understand what's going to happen with Dodger and the kids in Garbage Pail Land, and don't let me rush you if we want to kind of like, lay out some of these scenes, but I feel like, the arc there is that, yeah, I think that they're all going to really enjoy being there. I think Dodger's going to be suspicious of it and kind of freaked out at first, but then he kind of gets into it, like, oh, we're having fun, like, we can go, skiing into, a pile of razor blades or like whatever, like we could do crazy shit, like, get run over by a car. Remember that time I dodged traffic? Check this out, like whatever, we do all this crazy shit. But then eventually, like that moment has to come, like in Pinocchio, when suddenly they get turned into donkeys, and yeah, when Dodger should like look around and see his friends like fully transformed into Garbage Pail Kids, like full on messy Tessie, and just see them like looking like little baby dolls, like and it. But this is where I think we got to kind of show like the existential horror of what the Garbage Pail Kids really are. So like jump in, but like I think Dodger should be the one who starts to notice that it's not all fun and games. Like, there's baby doll characters like what's his name, nervous Rex, or I think maybe it is. It's like this little baby who's like chain smoking a whole pack of cigarettes at once, and
Right.
and like some of the characters it's really pretty horrific. Like it's not just fun violence, but some of them are like, God, like that's really fucked up. And I think Dodgers should start to realize that. And I think that could be an impetus for him to be like, hey guys, like we probably should get out of here,
Right.
and maybe there's the other kids can be like, what are you talking about, man? Like this is awesome, like we're having so much fun, like we can do anything here, like check this out, like grabs a gun from like Mean Gene or whatever, and Nat Nerd or whatever, like blows his brains out, or Atom Bomb blows his brains out, and it's like, look, I'm fine, like this is wild, but yeah, I think
Right.
Dodger should be the one. Again, I'm kind of fast tracking this, so slow me down here, but I think Dodger should be the one who kind of realizes that there's a darker element to this than we realize, and we're gonna, if we stay here, we're gonna get stuck here. Like we have to have that lesson sort of. I'm not sure how we learn that. Like one of the other characters explains it or something, and I think that, yeah, that's an interesting conflict. It's a little bit of a ticking clock in that, like you have to leave before you're like completely transformed into the garbage pail doll or whatever, and
Right.
once you're fully transformed, then like you can never go back, and and we can see that transformation, and maybe Dodger, since he's the one who's the least excited about being there, maybe he's the most human looking, and at a certain point, maybe he sees himself in the mirror and starts to realize that he has that like plastic cherub face, and he's like, oh shit, like we need to leave, but then he's going to have a hard time convincing his friends that it's time to leave.
Yeah, I think that's going to be like the bulk of the story is them, like, again, not to fast track everything, but the bulk of the story is going to be them having adventures in Garbage Pail Land, where they're going to be like, we'll see a bunch of different cameos from other, Garbage Pail Kids, and like just ridiculous shit like them, you'd mentioned the skiing down razor blades, and immediately I thought of that old, like, would you rather slide down a razor blade or drink a bucket of snot? Like I immediately thought of that.
Nice.
We could even play with those kind of concepts. Where it's like the would you rather game, like figure out some gross ones and have like the kids doing shit like that. We could have like, Tessie blowing like giant snot bubbles and like floating up in the air. We could have like, Nat peeing in a swimming pool and then jumping into it, like just really gross shit, right? And we could like do that again and again and again. But to your point, where Dodger should be the one noticing this, I think it would be appropriate for him to notice a character like Dead Ted or J Decay, whatever you want to call him, or like what's the you said the Nervous Rex, the smoking baby.
Yeah.
You could have some of these characters that it's not a great thing, or like, was it Unstitched Mitch, who's like guts are coming out, you could have these different characters and they're all like these different like horrific visages, and maybe like he talks to one of them, like talks to Dead Ted or something, is like, so what's your deal? And he's like, well, we don't get to pick what kind of garbage pail kid we become, and it's just like he's saying it, like his jaw pops off and he's just like, oh my god, his tongue's just waggling around. And he picks it up and pops it back on, and he's just like, hey, we all become what we become. So we see, like, Dodger noticing his friends doing these like gross things. Like, Adam is obsessed with blowing shit up and like shooting off guns, and he's destroying stuff, and it's all going back together. Nat is being gross with his piss, just being like, hey, maybe he's like popping pimples and doing gross shit like that. And Tessie is doing stuff, like I said, like blowing the snot bubbles and floating, or like, she's fucking doing a Spider-Man instead of like web slinging, she's snot slinging.
Gross.
We can have all sorts of like disgusting shit. But then, yeah, like, Dodger should like kind of break off from his friends and kind of explore on his own and run into all of these like not so cool Garbage Pail Kids, like the ones that are a little more horrific. Like maybe he runs into what is it, Mad Donna or Nutty Nicole, like the crazy, like the geek, she's eating a chicken, like, looking like psychotic and all that. We could see all these different characters and have him realize, like, this isn't what I want. I don't want to live here. We could have him, bouncing back and forth between the Garbage Pail universe, dad desperately searching for his kid, back and forth, back and forth. But we're going to have some kind of resolution with the bullies.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we need to get back to the human world, but let's kind of put that on pause for a second, and talk about where are we going with the kids in the Garbage Pail Kid world? Like I said, I don't think we need to do it beat by beat. We spent a lot of time doing the opening, like in a lot of detail, and then we're kind of painting this second act in wider strokes, and I think that's totally fine. So what I think we should slow down though and do like the third act. I think what we need to figure out is exactly what are the sequence of events. How does Dodger find out or come to realize, like, oh shit, if we stay here in the Garbage Pail Kid world, we're going to be stuck here, or we're going to be Garbage Pail Kids forever? Or what is the point of no return that is scaring the shit out of him? And how does he not only I feel like he is figuring it out by observing, but like, what is the thing that cements it for him, that he knows for sure, oh shit, like we got to get out of here? So that I think he has to go and have some kind of a confrontation with his friends about that.
Yeah, I think okay, we talked about in the second act how we would show like the montage of all the kids enjoying themselves in Garbage Pail Land. We pretty much do that the whole time. We should have like Messy Tessie and Nat Nerd and Adam Bomb, like clearly they're becoming these characters. We should see the slight changes in their physiology. Like we should see them like starting to look slightly different, or like I talked about Tessie doing the like snot slinging like Spider-Man, yeah. Swinging around. So clearly they're doing like these crazy fucking things that they couldn't do in the real world. But like Dodger hasn't joined them in that. Like maybe he's having fun, he's hanging out with his friends. He's like, this crazy world that we've discovered, like look at all that, but he doesn't look like them yet. Like he hasn't kind of given in. Maybe he starts to turn, and that's what scares him, because he starts to realize, or maybe he notices his friends turning. Like he's been hanging out with them, having so much fun, and they're doing these crazy things, but then he's noticing like they're starting to look different. They're starting to look like the other kids. And then maybe like, he looks at himself in the mirror and he's starting to look like one of the other kids. And it's like, oh shit, like, guys, we need to go. Like, kind of one of the, and it should be like maybe he's not looking too good. Like Dodger's looking like one of the creepy kids or something.
Real quick, we had talked about, like, even though he's a made up character, not like a real Garbage Pail Kid card from the 80s, but we had kind of mentioned with his nickname that he was sort of like dodging traffic. So he's turning into a character that's a little bit more horrific. He looks like he's standing in the middle of like a busy traffic, and there's cars whizzing by and like shaving parts of him off. You know what I mean? So it's like,
right,
he's not doing a very good job of dodging traffic. Not exactly run over like the flat guy in the Afterlife in Beetlejuice. You know what I mean? But like that's something in between the flat guy and like normal Dodger is this caught in traffic kid. But like it looks really scary.
Right. Yeah, so we could even play with some of the other cards. Like we could have him like get hit by one of the cars and twist around, or yeah, so one of the cars hits him and he twists around, like there's the Oliver Twisted where it's the kid that's like
Yeah,
twisted up into
yeah,
so he could like spin around, like his head could stay stationary and his whole body would spin around. He's all like twisted and then he spins back the other way and he's like, "Oh, what the hell?" Like,
yeah.
you know, we could play around with that, but yeah, like so he starts to realize that there is some consequence, or in his mind there's some consequence. He don't want to be a Garbage Pail Kid. He wants to be Dodger. He doesn't
Hmm.
he doesn't want to be like one of these gross weird cherub creatures. And then but we could we already talked about him talking to some of the other Garbage Pail Kids, like Dead Ted and all that, and them basically telling him like you don't get to choose the
Hmm.
type of kid you become, type of like you become what you become here. So he just realized like he's going to be getting hit by cars the whole time he's here.
Right.
Maybe that's not so fun.
Right. Yeah. Maybe have Atom Bomb. I think Atom Bomb should be the most excited, or I guess it's just Adam at this point, right? Adam should be the most
Yeah.
excited to be there, and Dodger, when Dodger runs up, maybe at first Adam doesn't even realize it. He could just be like, "Oh, dude, check this out," and he blows something up like he always does, and when he finally realizes that it's Dodger who's there, like he focuses and he's like, "Oh, dude, look at you. That's rad," and it's like that's not the reaction that Dodger was expecting to his friend
Right.
seeing him like all fucked up looking. And, you know what I mean? And
Right.
and of course, I think Nat and Tessie are, especially Nat, would understand where he's coming from a little bit more. Nat Nerd is not a good looking character. Like you would not want to look like that very stereotypical comic book nerd with, he's overweight with bad teeth and fucking horrible acne, and like you don't want to look like that. you know
Right. And he's
but
constantly pissing himself, so
exactly right, yeah. Constantly pissing himself, so yeah, it's like Nat. I think Nat would kind of be on his side, like, yeah, like Dodger's right, but like, okay, like hang on, like right after this, whatever. And it's like even Nat is kind of getting caught up in, they're kids, right? And they're not just in the garbage pail, but they're kids, and the other horrific characters there are kids, and so they're playing, they're goofing around, and like most kids, it's just like, hang on, mom, I'll be right in, like, because you don't want to quit playing the game,
right.
um, yeah, and we can have this bit of drama where Dodger, he's trying to convince him, and maybe in this moment when he's trying to convince his friends but his friends aren't really listening to him, we got to have one of the other Garbage Pail Kids, like one of the sort of classic ones. And I always say that, and I can picture some in my head, but I'm like, what are their names? Like, I don't know, like Handy Randy, the one that has like his fingers stuck through his face, or or even the original one. Oh, who was? Oh, I just had it in front of me. The original one, is it something Nick who looks like Dracula? The very first card, like card
Oh,
number one,
Nasty
is,
Nick.
yeah, Nasty Nick. Yeah, he looks like Dracula. And maybe we just have Nasty Nick, and I picture this in the sort of Bela Lugosi or like classic Dracula voice. He kind of gives the speech like this, like, of course you are correct if you stay here in Garbage Pail Land.
It sounds like Hibbert doing the count.
Yeah,
Blah.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Funnily enough, I always think of Forgetting Sarah Marshall, and now the actor's name is escaping me. Like, dude from like Freaks and Geeks and the Muppet movie remake. And anyway, what's his name? Jason something. He does the
Oh,
drag the drag.
Jason Segel.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, Jason Segel. I don't know why his name flew away, but I always hear his voice in my head when he does the Dracula musical at the end of Forgetting Sarah Marshall, which is the fucking best part of the whole movie. I wish I could see the whole musical. I really so badly want to see the whole thing.
Right.
uh, but yeah, so like Nasty Nick is kind of explaining him, like, yeah, you're right. We were all regular kids once, and then we came here, and like, look how great it is here. Like, why would we ever want to leave? And of course, to Nasty Nick, he looks like a sexy movie Dracula. Like, of course, like, he's not sad about being there. But you can have Dodger look around after hearing that, and first of all, number one, his his suspicions have been confirmed. Like, oh shit, like if we stay here, like we're going to be, stuck like these people forever. But then he's also going to look around and he's going to see other kids where their mutation is like way more horrific. Something like Bony Joni or Thin Lin, who is like literally a skeleton walking around with like a diaper on or something,
Or we could have like he pans by and we see a little Itchy Richie that's covered in spiders, and he's like, it's not so bad as he's like swatting spiders off him. Like they become your friends after a while. Like, and he's just like,
yeah,
he's like, he's dealing with it, but the kid is covered in bugs.
right. And then like you look over and you see some other, kids who are, it's like you mentioned earlier, the sort of existential horror that exists in like every 80s kids movie, and like this is the moment where we pan around and we see some of the other cards, some of the ones that are just like really messed up, like Jenny Jelly, who's literally melting into a puddle, or Bad Breath Seth, who like breathes smoke. And I'm just like going through the cards online, and
We could have like when Dodger's like doing the pan around, we could have the rundown Rhonda, who's like a flattened child who's been run over in the street. Like she could sit up from the street like that cartoony 2D flat thing, and she'd be like, besides, it'll be nice to have somebody else who's getting hit by cars with me, and then she gets hit by another car and
yes, that's perfect, right? And it's like, yeah, to Nasty Nick, like it seems okay, he's like, he's a cool Dracula who talks like this, but like some of the other kids, like maybe they made the wrong decision coming to Garbage Pail Kid Land and like staying there, because what they ended up with like isn't nearly as fun. And that's
Right.
and that's kind of what Dodger's getting into. It's like, he lives in this body where there's like, cars, like ghost cars or whatever, constantly whizzing back and forth and like twisting him around and like, shaving the skin off his back and shit. Like that's not fun. But like, yeah, again, that sort of becomes, and then we do that thing where as the camera pans around, and at first we see a couple of the kids, like you mentioned, one, was it Roll Up Rhonda, whoever, who speaks, and then we just do a sort of a faster sort of montage, the sort of like 80s scary funhouse montage of the kids' faces, like close up, and the camera kind of zooms in on them, and like the lighting goes all dark and dramatic on their face, and it's just like scary,
And there's plenty of them. I mean, I'm thumbing through them right now online. It's like, yeah, there's like mugged Marcus, who's just like beat the hell up. He's got like a shoe print in his face, and he's smiling, missing his teeth. Like, it's just, there's some really gross and weird ones. There's like Beaky Becky, who's like a vulture eating carrion.
Right?
It's
Yeah.
like,
Some of them are like pretty screwed up, or even some that like maybe seem like they could be kind of fun, like like Sticky Rick, who's just completely covered in super glue. Like that would get really old,
right. Like, yeah, no, we don't need that.
But yeah, so or is it I can't find a picture of it right now, but I think there's one called, is it Dwayne or something like that, where it's literally like the kid is a turd being flushed down a toilet. Oh man, I was trying to find the picture this whole time. Like, which one is that? I can't think of the name. But anyway,
I know, I'm doing the same thing. I'm thumbing through. I'm like, what? Where is it? Where is it? So Dodger realizes that he can't stay in this world. If he stays in this world, he's going to become one of them, and he's not going to become one of the cool ones. He's not going to become like a superhero, or like he's not going to be swinging around from boogers. He's going to be getting hit by cars with Rundown Rhonda. Yeah, he's like, no, I'm not staying here. Plus maybe he could mention, like, he's like, and what is my dad going to do without me? I'm like, I'm all he's got. So we kind of like remind the audience, hey, there's parents involved. Like he's got a family to go back to, that type of thing. So maybe he's trying to convince them he needs to go. Like they all need to go, but none of them are really all that keen on going. Like maybe Nat is kind of like a little bit there, but Tessie's kind of like, I don't know, I kind of like it here, and he's not really convincing them, but we can see them kind of look around and see the other kids and see the other, the crazy shit that's going on. Or maybe when he says like, my dad, like I'm all he has, maybe we kind of have like Nat and Tessie, we kind of do the thing where it's like they think of their parents and they get a little sad, they're like,
Mhm.
oh, and Adam's just like, what are you talking about? It's freaking great here. Like he's having a blast. No pun intended.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah. Oh, and real quick before we do that, like when you have Tessie say something like, I don't know, like I kind of like it here, we should see that she's playing with some of the other girl characters that are there. Because remember we had said that earlier that
oh
like
yeah.
she's like a girly girl who wears pink and likes Barbies and stuff, but like the real world kids think that she's just gross. I mean, she is, like
Right.
she really needs to learn how to like deal with like her runny nose. But there's other, garbage pail kids that are girls that, she's like, now she has like a gang to hang out with. Like maybe, the other girls run up and they're like, come on, Tessie, come with us. And they like, run off to have fun. And she kind of looks after them wistfully, and then, turns back to Dodger and Dodger's like, yeah, like our parents are going to miss us. Like, don't you think they're looking for us right now? That kind of thing. And,
Mhm.
and depending on how we figure out the dialogue, like this would be a good time to actually then cut back to the real world to kind of
Right.
check in on what's going on with the parents like Dodger's dad and Juice.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. Like we, Juice was supposed to go help Dodger's dad find him. So yeah, we cut back, and maybe we could have that have the thing where like, so yeah, so like Dodger does the whole thing about shouldn't you don't you think our parents would be looking for us, and then that's when we should cut back to the real world. And we already saw Dodger's dad, Double D. We see him leave with Juice. Juice is supposed to help him find the kids. So we should cut back to Dodger's dad driving around the city with Juice in the passenger seat, like kind of looking out the window with a flashlight, pretending to look, like
Hmm.
because he knows exactly where the kids are. And maybe this is where he suggests, like, yeah, when I was playing with them earlier, we went down to that dump, the city dump where you work. Like they're always playing in there. So, and I lost them around there. Maybe they're still there. Like he knows. He's just like, gee, Mister, I don't know where they could be. That type of
Yeah.
very unconvincing teenage bullshit. So like we have the two of them drive off to the dump. So it could be even one of those things where Juice wants to distract Dodger's dad because he doesn't want to let him know where they went. He wants to kick the shit out of Dodger and his friends. So it's like he's mad now. He got he got in trouble with his dad. The
Hmm.
whole town's mad at him. He's like, motherfucker, I'm gonna make you pay, like that type of thing. So maybe he tells like Dodger's dad, like, yeah, no, we were over there on the other side, like when they get in the entrance, like we were on the
Yeah.
other side of the dump, and last I saw, and maybe Dodger's dad will be like, all right, you wait here. I'm going to go look. It's dangerous over there because it's all like the mountains of trash and shit, So Dodger's dad runs off with a flashlight looking while Juice goes right to the fucking garbage cans where he lost the kids.
Yeah. Oh, perfect. Yeah. Yeah. And Dodger's dad should say something like, just to drive that point home, say something along the lines of, I told Dodger 100 times to stay away from that part of the dump, like where we've got all of the, the all that dangerous, like sharp stuff or whatever. Like he makes some comment about like Dodger knows he shouldn't be over there. Like you wait here, or like don't follow me, I'll be right back. And of course, Juice would love that because he's like, like fuck that kid. Now he's gonna get in trouble with his dad.
Hmm.
So let's cut back. Like I like that. Came back to the human world. We kind of checked in. Now let's go back and I think we need to see the outcome of Dodger attempting to convince his friends that they're going to leave. We kind of left it there, and I feel like, for the drama of the movie, like he can't win that argument.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and this would be a perfect time for Adam to either return or perk up again or whatever. I forget where we left Adam. I know he was there, but he definitely needs to turn and be like, "Whoa, bro! Like, no way, absolutely no way. We are not going back. Like, that is a loser's game. There's nothing there for us but parents who don't care and bullies who beat the crap out of us, and like our lives going nowhere in like a small town. Like, no way, man. Look, we have everything we want right here. And Adam
Hmm.
kind of becomes, like the heavy, he's kind of like an antagonist in this sequence, and Nat and Tessie are, they kind of see how intense he is, and he's he's charismatic, and they're just like, yeah, 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 absolutely, Dodger, he's totally right. Adam, like, we're with you. And Adam kind of steals the friends, from Dodger, who, before was kind of the ringleader. And it's like, well,
Hmm.
well, shit, fuck me, I guess. Not that
Right.
not that Dodger would say that, but that's kind of his attitude. He's just gonna. I don't know. Should he just kind of slink away, like dejected and sad, like, well, I guess my friends like Adam better than me? Or should it just be that now he's just really upset? Maybe he's angry, like my best friend just betrayed me. Like maybe he just runs off, tears in his eyes, like, well, screw you guys, and he just runs off, like, I'm out of here. Like he's gonna leave him there.
Hmm. I think, yeah, I think what it should be, maybe somewhere in between that. Like it should be the thing where it's like Adam does the, gets the friends on his side, and Dodger's just kind of like, guys, like, what, guys, what are you talking about? Like, we can't stay. And then have them be like, no, we want to stay. Like, what, you do what you want to do, Dodger, but we're staying. And
Mhm.
like have him just kind of like look dejected, and then maybe he sees, like, remember we had them fall from a giant height
Oh
to
yeah,
get to there.
that's right. Yeah,
um
yeah.
Maybe he like turns to run down Rhonda, and he's like, how do I leave? And she like peels herself up from the ground, and she's like, well, you gotta follow the exit sign, silly. And then she gets hit again. She's like, oh, goes right back down. And then he looks over, there's just like a big neon sign that somehow he missed that just says exit, and it's a toilet with like a flush.
That's perfect. Yeah, I love that.
So he goes over all sad, and like he's like, what do I do? And they're like, get in. And he's just like, of course. And he stands in the muddy water of the toilet and pulls the flusher and gets flushed down. And then, yeah, we should cut back to the real world and have frickin' Juice. I almost called him Dodger because I'm thinking about Dodger getting flushed. But have Juice like knocking over garbage cans, be like, where are you, little, I know you're in here, you grumble, grumble. I don't want to have him swear because it is a kid's movie,
Right.
but he's knocking over the cans, and then have one of them, like, he pulls the lid off the can, and Dodger just comes rolling out in like a flood of gross water. And he's just like,
Yeah.
oh, what the hell? Like, you got it on my shoes. Like, and he's all mad.
Oh, hang on a second. Oh, I love that. Hang on. Let me change that just a little bit. Okay,
Mhm.
so yeah, he let's say that he goes to open up the can, and it's not even like on its side. It's just like a regular trash can, like standing up, and like Juice takes the lid off, like he's gonna look in it, expecting to find some kid hiding in there, but instead it's just like this gush, like a geyser of like disgusting toilet water, and it just like throws him back, and then you see Dodger, yeah, he flies out of it like on a geyser, flops to the ground. Now he's in the real world, but you can see that he's still looks like the Garbage Pail Kid that he was transforming into. Like he hadn't fully made that conversion, but he still kind of looks like that. And then have him stand up and oh God, so gross. And maybe as he's doing that, he like he's like you lift his hand up and like kind of shake nasty pee water off, and he looks at his hands, and maybe that was skeletal or broken or twisted around backwards before or something, and you can see it kind of change back to normal. He sees it change back to normal, the audience sees it, but it like takes a second, because I think it would be important to see, okay, he's back to normal, he went back to the human world. That's how that works. Like those are the rules of like the physics here.
Right, right.
And then right when he's like, oh, okay, he kind of heaves a sigh of relief, like, oh, I'm normal, you're back to normal or something. And then that's when you see Juice, so you hear his voice like, you little punk. And he looks over, and there's not only is Juice just barreling at him like Jason Voorhees coming out of the woods, but he's like covered in toilet water and with like little turd chunks and stuff, and he's like, I'm gonna
Little
get
bits
you.
of toilet paper and crap on him.
He's like, I'm gonna beat your ass, you little bastard. And yeah, he should come over, and he's super fucking pissed. Juice is just,
Right.
it's not like before when he's gonna like bully him, like, oh, I'll give him a wedgie or a swirly or whatever these bullies do, or this uncertain threat of bullies chasing kids in movies. Like, what would they do if they caught them? Like, I don't know. We saw it in the actual Garbage Pail Kids movie. They just picked the kid up and threw him in a puddle, like a mud puddle.
Right.
uh, we should have Juice just come over, and like you can see he's really pissed, and he grabs Dodger by the shirt, and maybe you think, oh, this is a kids movie. He's just gonna like shake him and be like, listen, you little punk. But instead, he just fucking decks him. Like Juice just decks Dodger right in the face, like an actual bully, just beating the shit out of him. And you can see how angry he is. He's angry because he's covered in toilet water. He's angry because he's up in the middle of the night, and his dad is pissed at him. And it's like, Juice is like, he's full of rage right in this moment. Like, it's scary,
Yeah, well, I like all that. I was gonna say the thing I was gonna suggest is like when Juice is coming at him, being like, I'm gonna kick the crap out of y'all. Dodger stands up and he's finally like, you know what? I've had enough of you. I've had enough of this. I've had enough of all of this. And he goes to punch Juice and punches him in the chest, and it's like, ow. And then have Juice smile and then start literally kicking the shit out of him. Like he's beating the kid up, and again, that's not something we often see in a kids movie. We saw in the real Garbage Pail Kids movie, Dodger jumps on Juice and starts pummeling him and then starts crying. But we should have like Dodger take a swing and then Juice be like, that ain't shit, because again, real world, anyone who has had to stand up to a bully, it's gone one of two ways. The bully is either shocked, like the one I had where it was like the kid was shocked as hell that I fought back and I ended up winning that fight, or some of the fights I've seen where the kid stands up and gets the shit kicked out of him. Because again, real world isn't a movie. Sometimes people are just stronger than you. It's like you're kind of fucked. And in this case, he's an older teenager. He's gonna kick the shit out of this kid.
Yeah. But I think that's right. I think it's important to have Dodger have that moment where we see, that he's changing. So at least he has the moment, and then he gets fucking socked in the nose,
Right. And starts getting whomped into the garbage pile. But yeah, I think this is where, like, we're kind of at the end here. I think this is our third act, like, our big final, moment with Dodger versus the bully.
Okay. Yeah.
We should have the two of them fighting. Like Dodger's still trying, but he's getting his ass handed to him. Meanwhile, Dad, and we could even see like Dad is on the other side. Like we could pan over to the other side of the dump, and we could see him like checking behind like old busted up cars and shit. Like, Dodger, you in here? So he's not hearing his son getting the hell kicked out of him across the garbage dump.
Oh, yeah, I love it. Okay, that's made me think of something that I think would be awesome, since we talked about, okay, so this will be our big climax. We'll just do it like right here. Okay, this is perfect. So yeah, we have the camera cut away to the other side of the dump, like you said, and we see Dodger's dad looking around, like you said, and he has a flashlight, and then we cut back to Juice and Dodger, and Juice is kind of taking a breather for a second, just enough to have Dodger notice that there's a flashlight beam kind of flashing around, not really close, but it's dark, not that far away. And then he hears his dad yelling like, Dodger, Dodger. And right at that moment, you see Dodger get hopeful, like his eyes, kind of light up wide, and he starts to say, oh, hey, Dad. But before he can say anything, Juice puts his hand over his mouth and like leans in close to Dodger's face and is like, he can't help you now, right? Or like, something like, it's useless, kid. He can't help you. But then we hear a voice say, yeah, but we can. And Juice looks up.
Yes.
And it's fucking Tessie and Nat. Like they came back, like they followed Dodger, through and of course it's a weird movie where you'd be like, wait, what happened to like the geyser of toilet water? Like how did they come back? And it's like a surprise, but
right. And movie rolls, wavy hands.
Yeah, exactly, right. It's like maybe there was only like one gush of water, and Dodger just got the worst of it, and Tessie and Nat, they got to just like slide down a tunnel, like no big deal.
Right.
But it would be cool if it was Nat who said something like that. He's like, yeah, but we can, like, or Tessie says that, and then Nat says something like, yeah, Dodger, we're here to save the day, and the camera pans over, and it's like nerdy superhero Nat, but it's like there's like this dramatic lighting, and it's like it's very sort of Superman in like the old cartoon serial with his hand on his hips, yeah,
yeah, head turned slightly to the side, chin up, cape cape fluttering in the breeze.
Exactly. And Juice is just gonna kind of be, startled for a second, like taken aback, like what the fuck? And this is where Dodger, because he was putting up a little bit of a fight, like he was trying to stand up to Juice, and we're gonna do what has become a tried and true tradition in Ray's Rentals episodes. Something I've noticed recently, listening back to some of the old ones for some homework, is that we have people get kicked in the nuts a lot, so we're gonna have Dodger kick Juice in the fucking nuts right here.
Yes.
Yeah, and we gotta have Dodger go down on his knees and with that high pitched squeal like you see like it's a Police Academy movie or something. And then
he'll do the oh, and it'll fall down.
Yeah, exactly. And we have Dodger turn to Tessie and Nat, and we see that they still look garbage pail-y, but they're starting to turn back to normal. It's an 80s movie, so it would probably be some kind of weird like stop motion like makeup change, in reverse.
Oh yeah.
But
I think like there should be more than just a nut hit. Like I think that they should fight back, because I'm picturing like them using their garbage pail powers. So like we could have like him fall down and like Dodger goes to rush over to his friends, and to your point, he does see them start. They're like there's differences. Like he's seeing the humans underneath. Like they're starting to change back, and have like then we see like the shadow looming behind them.
Yeah.
And Dodger turns and he's just like you're dead. And have the three of them run, and if the bully chasing them, we could have Nat like be like, hold on, I got an idea, and start pissing his pants, leaving a trail, and like fucking have Juice slip in it and be like, oh, gross, and then have like Tessie blow a snot rocket at him, and he's like, what the hell? Like,
yes,
he's just getting more and more grossed out. But he should corner them and just be like, he's pissed. He's covered literally in piss and snot and like toilet water, and he's like, you are so dead. And then have someone like, again, we have let's have Adam return, and Adam runs out and he's just like, not so fast, Juice, I got something for you. And he headbutts him, and the top of his head fucking explodes and sends him flying into a dumpster. And it's like thunk, it falls down like, the Tweety birds around his head, just like, what the hell hit me? Or like, anyone get the license plate on that truck, before he falls over. And then have Adam's smoking head like reform and have him look at the other guys. He's like, I thought you could use a little backup.
Yeah.
So the three of them have like the big, reunion of the four friends, the three friends that had came to help Dodger, and have Dodger be like, does this mean that you're coming back? And he's like, no, I'm staying, Dodger. Like I found my family. Like I get that you have to be with yours, but you know how my life is. Like it's better down there. Like I'm better for it down there. And like have like maybe we could have Juice slowly getting up. He's like, I told you, I'm not done with you. And then he looks up and we see all the other creepy Garbage Pail Kids behind Adam.
Oh yeah.
And they're all just standing there like smiling at him, like unzipped Zach's got his face sticking out, like his skull sticking out. We could have like dead Ted like crawl up next to Juice, be like, hey buddy, how's it going? I'm just like, what the hell? And he like runs away screaming. And as he's running, we see like poopy spot on his pants and he's peeing. Just like mommy, like running away.
Yes, exactly. Oh, I love it. No, that's perfect. Yeah, it's perfect. or well, he's already covered in like toilet water and poop and stuff. But I definitely like the idea. We should definitely like have the camera look down at his crotch for a second and see it like bloom with like a new piss stain, and then he runs away. And then it's a cool storytelling trick to like tell the same joke twice, right? Where we see that same trail of piss like we saw Nat leaving earlier, but now it's from Juice, like he's leaving a trail of piss as he runs away.
Yeah.
I love it.
So we have him, him take off, and then we could have we could hear Dodger's dad in the background, like, Dodger, are you here? And have Adam like look at Dodger and be like, this is goodbye, buddy. Like, you know how to find me. You know where I am. Just like kind of does like the claps his hand on his shoulder, gives him a hug, and it's just like until next time. And then like him and the Garbage Pail Kids like run into the garbage cans and disappear, and we like Dodger turns to Nat and Tessie, and they're themselves again.
Yeah, I love
like he's
that.
like did you see that guy? guys, you're back, and then have like Nat be like, yeah, I'm gonna miss being Superman, and I'd be like,
Yeah.
you just pissed a lot, Nat. And he was like, yeah, but it was cool.
Yeah, exactly, right. And then same thing with Tessie, where she has to say something like, "Oh yeah, actually, I'm really glad to be back to normal," and then you just see her like rub some snot on the front of her sweater.
Yes,
It's like, yes, back to normal. Yeah,
Yeah, maybe she's like, now I can grow up like a real woman. Like she's just like not all across.
oh yeah, I love that. Actually, hang on, let's tweak that. I love that, like the idea of growing up. If it's something like, oh, hang on, let me sort of tweak this a little bit, because I feel like Adam and Dodger, this is a heartfelt moment between them, and I feel like Adam's
Mhm.
he's gonna say something like, I found my family. His family in the real world sucks. He's got to say something
Right.
like, there's nothing for me here. Like, these guys are my family now, and one of those kind of Fast and the Furious speeches. So he's gonna go back. Yeah, exactly. And then again, we kind of cut forward and you see Dodger notices that Nat and Tessie are back to normal, and Nat, like you said, Nat said something like, "Oh, I'm gonna miss being a superhero," and Dodger can ask Tessie like, "What about you? Like, why'd you come back? Like, I thought you liked it there. You had those other friends." And she says something like, "Yeah, but I think I'd really like to grow up." And
Right.
and then she wipes snot on her sweater.
Yes. Oh man, but yeah, so we should have like right after that little like heartfelt moment, and the kids disappear into the cans, and it's just Dodger, Tessie, and Nat. We should have like the flashlight kind of like lands on the three of them, and they're looking up, and Dodger's dad be like, "Oh my God, Dodger, I found you!" And he like comes running over and like embraces his son, and then like looks at the other two kids who are kind of covered in garbage and stuff, and he like grabs them and be like, "Oh my God, your parents are gonna be so happy that we found you," and then we could do the cut, like we cut from there of like the heartfelt moment, and have like we see the town hall who was all looking for the kids, and Dodger's dad comes in with the other kids, and they're like, oh, basically the day is saved,
Yeah, the big
type of
reunion,
thing.
like the end of the
And
Goonies.
right, and then we have like Juice's dad standing, and we still have like Tubbs and Crockett and all that, and we could have like Juice like bust in the doors. He's like, "Dad, you're never gonna believe what happened." And he looks down. He's like covered in piss, and he's like, "Oh, you pissed yourself again. Come on." And we see like Tubbs and Crockett like kind of snickering and laughing at him, just like, "What the hell? Like,
Right,
we
right.
used to follow that guy." So Juice got his. Like, not only did he get defeated, but then he's no longer head bully.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
no one's afraid of the pissy pants Juice
I know,
anymore.
right?
Now Juice won't stand for something fun. It'll stand for you got pee-pee pants.
I love that. I love that. Oh man, maybe the kids start calling him Juicer instead. Like
Yeah. Hey, Juicer. You juice
Oh,
your shorts lately, buddy?
exactly. Oh, I love that. Yeah, yeah. So he just kind of storms off, and maybe we see all the kids are laughing. Like, it's this happy ending, right? The kids are laughing, the parents are happy, even like Crockett and Tubbs are there, and they're kind of laughing along. And we do the zoom in or whatever, we have the camera focus on Dodger and his dad, and they're having a big happy hug. Everything's great, and we can like fade to black, but then we do text on the screen 2 months later, or 2 weeks later, or whatever, some period of time, 2 months later,
Mhm.
and then we fade back in and we see Dodger's face, and he's just looking really bummed, and we're seeing it through a chain link fence, and it's that thing where his hand is up on the fence next to his face, and he's kind of leaning on the fence like, oh man, at whatever he sees. And then we turn around and we see the dump where all this action had taken place, where his dad worked, but it's like gone, and there's like bulldozers and like big dump trucks or whatever, and it's like they're clearing the whole place out. And clearly Dodger is dejected and bummed, like, oh, like shit, like what am I gonna do now? Like the trash cans are gone or something. And we have
Mhm.
his dad, put his arm on his shoulder, like his dad was there the whole time. His dad puts his arm on Dodger's shoulder, and he's like, oh, don't worry, son, like I know you had a lot of good memories playing here with your friends, but like it'll be fine. Like, and you don't have to worry about me. They transferred me to, the new landfill, the new county landfill, down on Route 16 or whatever. Like, it'll be great, all big and high tech. And, they're moving me over here just like they're moving all this stuff just over there to the landfill. It'll be fine. But of course, Dodger,
Mhm.
all he sees is the only way I had to like have a reunion with my best friend is gone. Like, what am I going to do now? And I think from there we should cut to seeing Dodger like riding his bike through town. Life seems kind of normal. Everything's kind of like back to the way it was, just like we saw at the beginning. And he goes to that little like corner store, the White Hen Pantry. I think I said the wrong name before. The White Hen Pantry. It's like a little chain of like, in the north, and that's where I used to buy my Garbage Pail Kids cards when I was a kid. And he goes there because that's where he meets his friends and buys comic books or whatever, and have him go in the door. And yeah, sure enough, his friends are there. Like Nat's there and Tessie's there, and like fucking Crockett and Tubbs should be there too. Like they're all just hanging out, like looking at comics and like joking around. Like, oh, like these guys are they're part of the friend group now too.
Oh, nice. So yeah, it's we could even have like we could even set that up as like have him, wait, maybe Tessie and Nat aren't there. Maybe Dodger's riding through town, and have like we'll do the thing that we did before where it's like they kind of join up. So it's like we'll see like Tessie and Nat like join up with him on their bikes, and it's like like they head down to the store.
Yeah.
And then we walk in and we see Tubbs and Crockett like looking at comic books, and like when the door like you hear the jingle of the bell, the door opens, and the kids turn and look at them, and like immediately there's that moment of like, oh fuck, the other bullies. And then like Nat walks up to him and be like, is the new issue out already? And they're like, yeah dude, check it out.
Nice.
And it's like, oh wait, like they're cool now, like they're all friends. And like Tessie goes over there like looking at comic books and whatever, so we can have that little moment of like, oh shit, is there going to be a problem? And then like, oh wait, no, they're all buds.
Yeah.
And Nat was the first one, the scaredy cat was the first one to run over and greet their new friends.
Yeah,
because I like that idea that you meant like having them be friends. That's fun.
Yeah, no, I like that, and I don't know, maybe it's too much, but I feel like it'd be kind of cool if there was like some other girl in the store, like a younger girl, not one we haven't seen before, just some like random like little like pigtailed little girly girl, and she's looking at, I don't know, a little doll or a toy or something, and she just sneezes, and just like with Tessie, like she sneezes all over her arm, and then she just kind of like rubs it on her sweater, and and then she looks up at Tessie like, oh shit, like did you see me just do that? And Tessie just gives her like a little wink, and then like her mom comes over. It's like like, okay Mary, like let's go, and it's like, okay, like yeah, that girl's a little bit younger, but you know what? By the time we get in high school, we're gonna be buddies,
Right. Or like maybe it's not the sneeze. Maybe she's like, like just like some kind of belch or something. So it's like a different type of gross out.
Oh yeah, that's perfect. Yeah.
Like she's drinking like a soda or something, and she like waves at Tessie, and she goes to say like, hi Tessie, but she's like, hi, oh excuse me, hi Tessie.
Yeah, I love that. And the reason I wanted to add that is, you mentioned that Nat is, now he's buddies with Crockett and Tubbs because they're into comics. And then we see that Tessie, maybe met another, friend, someone that, that she might be able to hang out with. And then, Dodger, he's happy for him. Maybe he has like a little bit of a smirk, a little amused smile, but still kind of like, oh, I miss Adam, in his face, not really out loud. But then that's when the cool clerk, the guy who works there, who's like, down with the kids, he's like, oh, hey, Dodger, I didn't see you come in. I was waiting to show you guys this when you were all here. Check this out. The brand new trading cards that like just came in. Like they're so disgusting. It made me think of you guys. You guys are going to love these. And he hands Dodger a pack of trading cards. And of course, Dodger looks at it, and it's that classic Garbage Pail Kids pink with that cartoon drawing of Atom Bomb right on the cover. Dodger's just gonna break out in a big smile like, oh, that's amazing, like so freaking cool. But then the camera kind of zooms in as Dodger's taking a closer look at the picture, and as that camera zooms in on that little cartoon face, you just see the face wink. It winks back at Dodger.
Yes!
And of course he's just like, oh shit, Adam. Now we know everything will be like right with the world, like fade to black.
Yes. Yes. I love it. That's the perfect ending.
Yeah,
it's like, oh, his friend is still out there somewhere in the magical land of Garbage Pail Kids.
Yeah, I love it. It's so cool, and it's like, and then an actual tie-in with like an actual, pack of the cards like in the movie. Like, yeah, that would be really fun. I love that.
I think we did it. I think
Nice.
A better version of Garbage Pail Kids the movie, if I do say so myself. We didn't have a home for the ugly in this one.
I know, right? With Santa Claus and Abe Lincoln in it for some reason.
Right.
Oh, we did it. So we returned to our roots, Mike. We did an improve where we actually improved something that really existed, and we're like, you know what? Let's do it our way. Let's make it better. I think we made it way better. Of course,
I agree.
the bar was pretty low, so I think we were going to make it better no matter what. But I'm pretty happy with what we did. You know?
Yeah, I mean the bar was pretty much non-existent. Like,
Yeah.
even fans of the Garbage Pail Kids trading cards all are like, yeah, no, there's the movie.
Yeah.
Like, it's like almost like they like it because they have to. But
Yeah. It's like this embarrassing thing. Like, yeah, yeah.
like yeah, that exists. It's okay.
I
You
know.
know,
And
it's kind of like how I am with Freddy's Nightmares. I'm just like, yeah, that exists.
I know.
Thing.
It's got to be especially frustrating for those mega fans who are the collectors, the ones who collect all of the ephemera and all the, the hard to find merchandise. Like, it's if you're a big fan of the cards and there's like cool stuff you can get, like large prints of the cards and the characters printed on like T-shirts and whatever. But then you're like, well, I guess I had to collect all that movie shit too, huh?
Yep. Like, oh well, here we go.
Like if you're going to be a completionist, you got to get all that stuff too.
Go all in.
Imagine going on eBay and spending like a shitload of money on a prop from the real movie or something that somebody was selling online. You're like, God damn it! Like, I do not want to spend $1,000 on this stupid paper mache, Nat nerd head. But God damn it! Like, and you just feel compelled to do it because you're this completionist collector who has to have everything.
Oh my god, I would. No, there's no way. There's no way I would spend that money. I'm so glad I'm not a full-on completionist because I can mostly pick and choose. Mostly,
Yeah.
there's certain things where I'm like, damn it, I gotta have it all.
Yeah, that's how I am too. In general, I tend to lean toward being a completionist, but I really try to shoot that in the foot before it gains any kind of toehold, to double down on that metaphor. There have been some times, like there have been some comic collections where for whatever reason I've decided, you know what, I'm just gonna buy every comic related to these characters. It's not like a Superman or a Batman where it's almost an impossible task. These sort of obscure characters, I could get every one of their appearances, and I really like this character. But then after a while, I end up owning a bunch of comics that I don't actually like. I read, and it was like a slog to get through them, and then they take up space on my shelf or in my comic boxes. And almost every single time I have done that, I have eventually come to my senses after a couple of years, and I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, and I end up just selling all this shit that I don't like. It's like it was fun to put the collection together, and I enjoyed the hunt and the satisfaction of completing the final piece of the puzzle. And then I just let it go. Like, I don't need to keep it forever,
See, that my only thing that I can say I'm a completionist with is the NECA Jason figures, for specifically the Ultimate Jasons. So because I know it's a limited run, it's only going to be so many, and they still have a handful they need to make now that they're free to do it again.
Yep.
But like, yeah, I collected. I have every ultimate version of Jason that they've released thus far, and it's like once they complete all the Jasons, I'm done. Like that's it. I'm buying all the Jasons. I didn't do it with Freddy. I wanted to, but I'm like, no, I'm not gonna do it with Freddy. I'm just doing it with Jason. That's the only one, and that was only because I already had like 4 Jason figures by the time I realized. I was like, well, I'm gonna get the rest.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I won't get into it, but yeah, there was a particular comic line that I was a really big fan of, like in the 90s, and then at some point in like the 2010s, I realized, as much of a fan as I am, I've actually never read a lot of the comics that came out because I had quit comics for a while in the late 90s, and then when I got back into it, I was reading different types of stuff, and also just had a limited budget, and I felt like I missed a big chunk of the line. And so at a certain point I was like, well, I'm not rich, and I've collected some of them just naturally over the years. I was like, fuck it, like let me fill in the gaps and just do the rest of it. And yeah, it took me fucking years, and then when I finally did, it was really satisfying. But then I was like, Yeah, like a lot of these suck.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was fun. I actually did that a couple of times. I did it a couple of times, and then yeah, right now I only have one that's like that, but only because that one, again, that one line or family of comics, I would say probably 80% of it is like legitimately good. So I'm like, okay, fine, I'll keep the other 20% that is really not that great, just to keep the whole collection together and to have the complete set. But if that percentage was lower, I would definitely start looking at eBay to see if it was worth it for me to like put this shit on the aftermarket.
Right.
But anyway. So yeah, we did it, Mike. We got through the Garbage Pail Kids improve, our own reimagining, and this is a cool one because we have checked off an interesting box in terms of accomplishment, in that there have been a few times over these last 4+ seasons where we've actually done one of the original concepts, original ideas that we had on our list for episodes to do for Raise by Rentals, from like when we first started brainstorming concepts or topics.
Right.
Yeah, which is awesome. We mentioned some of them when we did our morgue file episode a while back. We did a little bit of it when we went into some detail with the All the Damn Vampires, like Lost Boys TV show, and our clip show cliche episode, like that started off this season. But it's always fun when we get a chance to like, oh, we finally checked it off. Like the Garbage Pail Kids movie, but good, has been on the list since the beginning. It was like the 5th one we ever wrote down.
Yeah. I can't believe it's been that long, but yeah, you're right. That's wow.
Yeah.
It's been forever.
Yeah. We finally got back to it. So yeah, season 5, it's going to be a fun one. The next episode is going to be a lot of fun. We have a lot of cool stuff coming up later in the season. Again, very different from last season in terms of the tone and approach. So everyone, please keep tuning in. I'm hoping that this season, if there's any kind of theme, it's just that you're never going to expect what's next.
I think that's a fair assessment, because just some of the stuff we've discussed last season that we wanted to do this season, we got some shit planned.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. So with that, once again, thanks everyone. You can find us online at raisedbyrentals.com, at raisedbyrentals on a couple of the socials. I'm not that big on social media. Sorry, self-promotion is hard and there's only so much time in the day. But anyway, we also we also belong to the Rad Pantheon, a super team of podcasters, artists, musicians, and all sorts of creative people helping to spread the gospel of rad stuff. So check out radpantheon.com and go sample some of the other projects from some of our buddies in the Rad Pantheon. Mike, you're in the Rad Pantheon. What do you got going on?
Well, over at the Boogeyman's Closet, we're still plugging away. It's not quite the way it used to be, where it was an episode every week, but we're trying to get out at least a couple episodes a month. I'm not sure when this episode is going to come out, but we're going to be doing Spanish Horror Month. We're kicking that off with When Evil Lurks, which is a very dark film, really, really good film, but very dark film for those that have not seen it. So good stuff there. And then, of course, Count Creepyhead's Saturday Morning Monster Mash. We are also kind of having some scheduling issues, just with all 3 of our lives have been very, very busy recently. And but we are going to be recording a new episode very shortly, where I believe we are going to go into a deep dive on Resident Evil Requiem, which is something that all 3 of us have been chomping at the bit to play all year. And we've since obsessively played it into completion. So we'll be talking about that.
Nice. That's awesome. Hey, Mike, I was surprised when my podcast feed app suddenly decided that, yes, I had in fact subscribed to your new podcast, and I had all the episodes all at once, and I didn't even realize that they had even actually come out. I guess it was just some weird bug in my subscription, but you have a new podcast.
Yes, indeed. Taste Buds. That is with my friends Sean and Nicole. We basically get a little bit stoned. We all try a different strain of weed, and then we try some snacks, and we just kind of talk about it and talk about what we think. And been having a lot of fun with that. They're very short, bite-sized episodes, no pun intended. But we try. Mostly, it's just trying random snack foods that Sean and Nicole buy, or like random recipes, and it's been a lot of fun. We have a few planned coming up where we're going to be cooking some some homemade stuff, trying new recipes and stuff to see what each of us think. And we're all pretty different in our actual taste buds, like what we actually enjoy.
Nice.
So it's kind of funny because if one of us hates it, usually the other ones like it, or vice versa. So it's definitely been a lot of fun. And yeah, I think we have like 10 episodes in the can. So
Nice.
that should be coming out rather regularly. It's probably the only show that I'm going to be on this year that will come out rather regularly, because life be lifing, man.
Oh, don't I know it? Yeah, this show will not be as regular this year or this season as it was in season 4 for, not for any particular reason other than just, life be life, man. And we're just trying to have fun with it. And I'm not stressing out about the calendar. And, sometimes we'll put out a bunch and sometimes not so much, but whatever. My only goal is to try to get out at least one Raised by Rentals episode a month, just to have some kind of a deadline so I don't procrastinate forever as I am wont to do,
Same.
But
Same.
yeah. So absolutely, yeah. It was weird. Like one day I just opened up my phone and I'm like, oh shit, I have like 7 or 8 episodes of this all at once. Like, I saw Sean or Nicole, I forget, post about it, and I'm like, I didn't even realize it like had been released yet. Like, weird. Anyway,
Right.
But anyway, we'll wrap it up there. Once again, thanks to everyone for tuning in. If you had fun with us, visit us on the socials, drop us a line, leave a comment, leave a podcast rating. Let us know what you think we should actually improve next time. And with that, I'm Sloshed Josh.
And I'm Spiky Mikey.
And we have to return some videotapes, especially Garbage Pail Kids, the movie, because fuck that shit.
They called it a stunningly inept and utterly reprehensible film.